Chapter 671. Just as everyone was closing in on Layden with malicious intent, a sinister smile suddenly appeared on Layden's face. He bit down on the tip of his tongue before chanting in a strange language, upon which his aura erupted to the pinnacle of the return to void intermediate stage. At the same time, an extremely sharp crimson light burst forth from his hands, which shattered the spatial barrier. Whoosh! Layden fled into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Cassidy, Xiao Zhe, Merlin, and Tobias' expressions shifted drastically as they immediately gave chase. "Tina! Take me with you!" Anlin yelled. Tina immediately pulled Anlin along with her as they leaped through space in pursuit of Layden. Layden fled extremely quickly, and everyone was struggling to catch up to him. "Humph! You caused my cultivation base to drop and my Tao foundation to be damaged. Cassidy, Tobias, Merlin, Bryce. None of you will get away. I'll get Emperor Deng to send all of you to hell for all eternity." A cruel expression appeared on the little boy's face, and it was clear that he was filled with hatred toward all of his pursuers. "This is the first time I've seen someone call their daddy so righteously." Xiao Zhe chuckled coldly. Layden faltered slightly at the sight of Xiao Zhe before a thought suddenly occurred to him. "So it's you guys. Hee, look at how badly you've been beaten up by me, you useless dragon. You still dare to talk back to me? Do you want to fight again? You're just a stray dog." Xiao Zhe glowered at Layden with a mocking expression, and he didn't forget to give Layden the finger even as he flew through the air. Layden couldn't be bothered with Xiao Zhe, and he continued to flee. This was not the time to let his emotions get the better of him. Right at this moment, a white light flashed, and a little fairy flew toward Xiao Zhe with a man in tow. Tina's features were deathly pale, and it was clear that she had expended a lot of energy. "Master, what are you doing here? Watch out for Layden's retaliation." Xiao Zhe immediately tried to dissuade him. Anlin didn't say anything. Instead, he glowered at Layden in the distance. Layden was still fleeing when he suddenly recalled his tragic past, and tears began to flow from his eyes. "Wah!" Little Layden began to bawl, as if he were a child whose toy had been snatched away. Then, an indescribable abdominal pain accompanied by something exploded. PFFF. Layden clutched his stomach as his body trembled violently. This power was too familiar. It was the power that had brought him humiliation and trauma. As he ran, he shouted in horror, "Anlin, it's you again! You and I are absolutely irreconcilable. You make it sound like we've been friends for a long time." Anlin stopped chasing after Tina after using 2 special spells, as Tina was also out of energy. His 2 special spell techniques were able to slow down Layden to a certain extent. This short delay was not to be underestimated. It was exactly because of this slight delay that Layden finally entered everyone's attack range. Xiao Zhe transformed into a black dragon over 10,000 feet in length before unleashing countless bolts of lightning toward Layden. Layden hurriedly dodged, but his skin was still charred black by the bolts of lightning. Just as Layden was dodging the bolts of lightning, a crimson sword glowing with white starlight pierced through the air before stabbing toward Layden's heart. Layden had used a mystic technique to elevate his cultivation base to the pinnacle of the return to void intermediate stage, thereby allowing him to evade Cassidy's attack. The cursed star-blood sword only managed to inflict a small wound on his waist. "Humph! You want to kill me? In your dreams. I'm no weaker than any of you now, so keep chasing me. When the Emperors detect this, it'll be the time of your deaths." A cold smile appeared on Layden's face, and there was no hint of panic or concern on his face. He didn't know why the holy disciples had chosen to ally with Anlin and the others, but the fact that they had joined forces with a human to kill him was enough to strip them of their status as holy disciples and subject them to the eternal punishment of the Tao integration stage emperors. This was a great crime of betraying the clan. However, to Layden's surprise, Cassidy and the others didn't seem to be nervous in the slightest. Instead, they were elated that the crimson sword hadn't struck his vital organs. What was going on? Layden, I think you'll be able to last for another 3 minutes. Cassidy chuckled. What do you mean? Layden's brows furrowed. This is a punishment from the holy blood. You'll know how powerful it is very soon. Tobias chuckled as if he had a card up his sleeve. Layden was getting a little nervous. What holy blood? What punishment? He didn't understand a single thing. However, Cassidy and the others didn't appear to be faking it. Cassidy recalled her cursed star blood sword and licked her lips with a smile. This is a sword that has been smeared with lethal poison. That's right, Cassidy had smeared Enlin's blood onto her sword. This type of blood was extremely lethal to low-rank blood tribe cultivators. Layden's actual cultivation base had already fallen to the pinnacle of the return to void initial stage, so he definitely wouldn't be able to resist the purification of the holy blood. Cyril, who was only at the pinnacle of the return to void initial stage, was a perfect example for Layden. 1 minute later. Thump, 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 Layden's heart rate accelerated for some reason, and a burst of destructive power swept through his entire body. He roared with agony as his body plummeted from the sky with one hand clutched to his heart. Boom! His naked body smashed into the ground, creating a massive crater. Cassidy, Xiao Zhe, Tobias, and Merlin also caught up to Layden at this moment. However, they didn't rush to attack. Instead, they positioned themselves in 4 different directions to seal off Layden's path of retreat. That's right, there was no need for them to attack. Layden had been stained by the holy blood, so he was already dead. What did you do to me? Layden's body trembled as he spoke with great difficulty. He couldn't even stand, let alone run away. Enlin and Tina also rushed over, and they heaved a sigh of relief at the sight of the little boy lying in the crater. We didn't do anything. We just stained you with the blood of the holy leader. The blood of the holy leader isn't something that everyone can handle. Weaklings like you are going to die. Cassidy spoke with a smug expression. All they had to do now was watch the show from the sidelines and let Layden die knowing the truth. Sure enough, Layden's condition began to worsen, and his body began to spasm. An untimely moan of pleasure suddenly sounded. Everyone faltered upon hearing this before turning to look at the little boy, only to discover that a peculiar flush had appeared on his face. It seemed like he was enjoying it. Rumble, the sky suddenly darkened. Dark clouds gathered and lightning surged. The brilliant might of the heavens intimidated the world. This is... And Lin stared at the scenes unfolding before him with incredulity in his eyes. Layden didn't die, and his eyes were extremely bright. It was as if his body had been reborn, and his aura had also become more powerful. This is the blood of the holy leader? How wonderful! It has cleansed all of the impurities in my body, and even my life force has been elevated to a higher level. I'm going to progress to the return to void intermediate stage again today. That's right, Layden had absorbed Enlin's blood, and he had broken through his bottleneck and was about to transcend his tribulation. Chapter 672. Heavens, the blood of a sacred lord is actually unable to kill him. Not only that, but he also backfired and indirectly helped him break through the realm. Everyone stared at the boy in the pit in shock, finding it hard to accept this fact. Don't be afraid. Let's kill him before he successfully breaks through. Xiaoza was the first to come back to his senses and reminded everyone. The eyes of Cassidy and the others lit up upon hearing that. That's right, the person undergoing the tribulation couldn't move, or they would suffer a backlash from the lightning tribulation. In other words, Layden had to remain where he was to be struck by lightning. During this period of time, he would be a live target, and this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Xiaoza had long wanted to take revenge for Yellow Spring City, so he made the first move. A massive dragon tail swept through the air as it swept toward Layden with unstoppable force, making the space around it warp and crack open. Right at this moment, Layden opened his mouth, and a semi-transparent white ball instantly enveloped his entire body. Rumble! The dragon tail collided with the white ball and was sent flying by the huge recoil. The white ball didn't move an inch, as if it was connected to the heavens and the earth. Its surface flickered with a sparkling and translucent luster. It was flawless, like a perfect piece of jade, and it had actually blocked Xiao's all-out attack. This is the white world stone that my father left for me. Only lightning tribulation can penetrate this barrier. Unless one's power reaches the return to void pinnacle stage, they won't be able to cause any damage to this white realm stone. A faint smile appeared on Layden's face as he surveyed his surroundings. I'm invincible for the time being. You'd better run away before I come out of my tribulation. Lin and the others didn't think that Layden would still be able to spit out a protective bead from his stomach after being punched to the ground by Tobias. Furthermore, it possessed such powerful defensive prowess. They did not give up and continued to use all kinds of techniques to try and break the white boundary stone. But unfortunately, they all failed. Give up. It's not too late for you to run now. Layden was elated. Do you really think we can't defeat you just because you've reached the return to void intermediate stage? Xiao chuckled coldly. I can still beat you into calling me daddy. Tobias bumped his fists together with a cold expression. Layden's expression was ashen as he stared at the man before him. He felt like he was the perfect example of a tiger being bullied by a dog. Back when he was at the return to void pinnacle stage, none of these people would dare to act like this in front of him. Rumble! The world exploded, and an extremely dazzling bolt of lightning descended from the sky. It was like a golden sun in the sky, illuminating the entire world in a golden color. The bolt of lightning pierced through the white realm stone before striking Layden's body with devastating might. Layden's body shuddered as the golden void lightning struck him, and his skin became slightly charred. Cassidy's brows furrowed slightly as a grave expression appeared on her face. This golden void lightning is very powerful. It's most likely due to Layden's exceptional foundation to begin with, which is why it was enhanced by the divine lightning. Once he breaks through to the return to void intermediate stage, his power will definitely increase drastically. If he wants to escape, we might not be able to stop him. 36 bolts of minor tribulation lightning won't be able to kill him no matter how powerful they are. Let's set up a trapping formation in advance. Tobias also had a resigned expression on his face. Everyone else nodded upon hearing this. Just as they were about to make their move, they discovered that Lin had already flown into the sky atop his brick. Rumble! Another bolt of golden lightning struck Layden's body. As the lightning snake swam, his aura became more and more vigorous. Holy Leader, what are you doing? Cassidy yelled upon seeing this. Could it be? Tobias' eyes widened, as if he had discovered a new continent. Boom! The golden lightning tore through the air before crashing down upon Layden again. Lightning flashed, illuminating the entire sky with a golden hue. The black brick had kept the golden lightning at bay. Layden's mouth gaped open in shock at the sight of the black brick above his head. Everyone else was elated. They finally understood what Lin was trying to do. He was trying to stop the divine lightning. The divine lightning had a specific target, and once it was obstructed in its path, it would become more powerful and eradicate all obstacles in its path. Return to Void stage golden void lightning was indeed very powerful, but no matter how powerful it was, would it be able to break through the chaotic alloy brick's defenses? Boom! An even more fearsome bolt of golden void lightning struck the black brick, but it was still unable to break through its defenses. Lin, who was carrying the black brick, was forced back a certain distance by the fearsome explosion of lightning. Little Xiao, your skin is thick and you're strong, so you carry the black brick. Lin yelled. Only then did Xiao come to his senses, and he immediately flew toward Lin with an enthusiastic expression. All right, master, you can rest for now. Leave this kind of manual labor to me. Xiao Zhe loved screwing over Layden the most. Big, 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 and Lin used his intent to transform the chaotic alloy brick into a gigantic black brick over 1,000 feet in length before giving it to Xiao Zhe to carry on his back. The black dragon possessed invincible defenses, and now he was carrying a black brick that resembled a turtle shell on his back. This combination struck despair into Layden's heart. "Holy leader, you're the best!" A mesmerizing smile appeared on Cassidy's face as she praised Enlin from the bottom of her heart. "Giant Enlin, when can I become as outstanding as you?" Tina wore an envious expression. "It's nothing much, it's just some basic skills, don't make a fuss about it." Enlin waved his hand nonchalantly. Rumble, the tribulation lightning was still raging. Bolts of golden void lightning tore through the air before crashing into the chaotic alloy brick on Xiao Zhe's back, upon which they exploded like golden fireworks, creating an exquisitely beautiful scene. It was a beautiful scene, but in Layden's eyes, it wasn't beautiful anymore. Instead, it was terrifying. The tribulation lightning became more and more powerful, and it looked as if it wouldn't rest until the chaotic alloy brick was destroyed. What would happen if this lightning struck Layden's body? Enlin. F***CKU. Layden was enraged, and he let loose a torrent of abuse. "Go ahead and curse. No one is going to come and save you even if you curse until you're hoarse." Enlin chuckled lightly. Wasn't the enraged cursing of his enemies an affirmation of his own power? He had no choice but to use his mouth. Layden's breathing accelerated as he looked up at the increasingly fearsome tribulation lightning overhead, but there was nothing he could do. Golden void lightning was extremely fearsome, and even return-to-void stage mighty figures would do their best to avoid facing the golden void lightning head-on in case they received backlash from the heavenly Tao lightning. However, Xiao Zhe was different. Not only did he possess a powerful body, he also had the chaotic turtle shell, and he had the tamer of divine lightning, Enlin, protecting him. Before he knew it, there were already more than 36 bolts of golden void lightning, but the tribulation lightning was still falling, and it was becoming more and more powerful as time went on. 49 bolts of golden void lightning fell, and Xiao Zhe's body swayed slightly as he struggled to maintain his composure. There were 64 bolts of golden void lightning, and Xiao Zhe's massive body was already lying on top of the white ball with an expression of agony on his face. "Io! Help, I can't even stand a brick, Layden. Look at how hard Papa is working for you. Don't you feel touched?" "Xiao, heavenly tribulation, I'll resist," Zhe grinned and panted heavily. It really seemed to be a little painful, but he was still very happy. PFFF. Layden finally couldn't help but throw up a mouthful of blood at the sight of the devastating lightning. "I hate you. You're all inhumane," Layden roared with grief and indignation. He was enraged, but there was nothing he could do. The 80th bolt of lightning fell, and the terrifying lightning reduced everything within a radius of over a kilometer to dust as a massive abyss appeared in the sky. Xiao Zhe was also struck by the shockwaves, and his skin began to crack open. Enlin's expression shifted as he yelled, "Little Xiao, retreat! This is more than enough." Xiao Zhe immediately fled into the distance. The 80th bolt of golden void lightning was accumulating, and the dark clouds had turned golden. Terrifying lightning might erupted forth, threatening to crush the entire sky. The heavens had been enraged. Layden's legs gave out from under him, and he collapsed to the ground. An expression of despair appeared on his face. "It's over, it's all over. Even I wouldn't have been able to transcend this tribulation lightning in the past." At that moment, he thought of his father. Chapter 673. That's right, if only Daddy was here. Emperor Yi Deng was so powerful, he would definitely be able to disperse the lightning clouds and start anew. The boy looked up at the terrifying might of the lightning in the sky, and tears of remorse flowed from his eyes. How did things develop to this stage today? What had he done wrong? Layden took a deep breath, and the fear in his eyes slowly faded, only to be replaced by an extremely determined expression. There was no construction without destruction. Nothing in this world was absolute, and no calamity was hopeless. There was always a glimmer of hope in the midst of despair. Perhaps he would be able to forge a peerless great Tao if he could survive this tribulation lightning. Layden's blood instantly began to boil, and all of the gloominess in his eyes disappeared. He reverted back to his stoic self. He pointed a finger up into the sky, and his aura soared explosively as a suit of crimson armor appeared over his body. Come, tribulation lightning. No matter how powerful you are, Bin Laden has nothing to fear. Boom, 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 golden lightning converged above his head, and the dense energy pulverized the space around him like a spiderweb. The center of the void had been pulverized into a pitch-black hole, and only the golden lightning remained. Gasp! Unlin and the others retreated for over a kilometer upon seeing this. A sense of respect welled up in their hearts at the sight of Layden's fearless and domineering figure. Layden is quite impressive. To think that he was able to overcome his fear in the face of such a terrifying tribulation lightning. Merlin exclaimed in admiration. It's a pity that he messed with someone he shouldn't have messed with. Cassidy's eyes roamed over Enlin's body as she spoke in a slow voice. Enlin nodded. I respect him for being a true man, so I'm going to make him a little more tragic. What do you mean by that? Everyone asked. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face as he pointed up at the lightning in the sky. Lightning amplification technique. An invisible ripple proliferated forth, and the golden lightning in the sky suddenly became even more dazzling, tearing through the entire sky as heaven and earth tremored violently. In that instant, the golden void lightning transformed from the lightning of death into the lightning of annihilation. Everyone. Tears welled up in Layden's eyes again as he looked up at the lightning in the sky. How can he be so strong? This doesn't make sense. But that's all right. Who do you think I am? I'm a peerless, powerful being who defies the natural order. How could I possibly succumb to divine lightning like this? A blood-red sword appeared in his hand. All of his secret techniques were activated. The might of the crimson sword was astonishing to the extreme, and the surging crimson light was even beginning to rival the golden void lightning. Kacha, along with the shattering of space, the terrifying world annihilation lightning finally descended. At this moment, it was as if the golden light had torn apart the primal chaos and the world had been born. The lightning, which contained the majesty of the heavens, became the only thing in the world. A blood sword with monstrous power? Shatter. Indestructible blood armor? Shatter. In the face of this terrifying lightning, everything in the world was like a dream, vanishing into thin air upon contact. In the end, the bolt of golden lightning struck Layden's body, instantly reducing him to particles even smaller than molecules before disappearing from this world. Not only that, but the earth within a radius of over a kilometer seemed to have evaporated. Even the white realm stone, which was supposed to be able to defend against all attacks from cultivators below the return to void pinnacle stage, was also destroyed. It was as if everything had been wiped clean. Boom. Only at this moment did a deafening thunderclap erupt. The sound waves caused the earth to tremor as gale-force winds swept up, sweeping up trees and earth within a radius of several kilometers. At this moment, everything between heaven and earth was pulverized by the boundless golden lightning, as if doomsday had arrived. After a short while, as if some kind of mission had been completed, heaven and earth became clear again. The lightning in the sky began to recede, and the dark clouds also slowly dissipated. Sunlight shone down upon heaven and earth, and the sky was once again filled with color. However, the bottomless crater was like a gargantuan abyss in the earth, and it was still as terrifying as ever. Enlin, Tina, Xiao Zhe, Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias all stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before their eyes as fear welled up in their hearts. Is this the F***king power of a minor lightning tribulation? Tobias' lips twitched. Layden died. He didn't even get a chance to cry out before he was instantly reduced to dust with his undying ambition, Cassidy said in a faint voice. Xiao Zhe had already reverted back to his youthful form, and his body was trembling uncontrollably as he hugged his black brick tightly. Thank God Master told me to retreat. If I hadn't run away just then, I would have most likely been reduced to dust along with that bastard. That kind of power was not something that a mere black brick could withstand. After all, the black brick could only defend against a one-way attack. However, that bolt of lightning seemed to have been imbued with the wrath of the heavens, and it was a bolt of apocalyptic lightning. It was a 360-degree attack with no blind spots, and it was a fearsome attack that was capable of completely obliterating any Tao realm cultivator in their physical body or consciousness. Even Enlin, who was never afraid of being struck by lightning, felt like his lightning manipulation technique wouldn't have been able to move that bolt of lightning. That golden void lightning had already transcended beyond the scope of his control, and it had entered an extremely mysterious realm. That bolt of lightning is very powerful, but we should still confirm whether Layden is dead or alive, Enlin suggested. No one had any objections. Layden had far too many trump cards. Even Tobias' full-force attack, that he had borrowed upon the power of the Blood Patriarch, had been blocked by him. It was best to confirm whether Layden was dead or not. After a quarter of an hour, the group finally heaved a heavy sigh of relief after finding nothing. Very good, Layden really was dead. This was not a place to linger for long, so Enlin and the others regrouped with Su Xiaolan and the others. Su Xiaolan made her way over to Enlin, and she heaved a sigh of relief upon seeing that he was fine. Enlin, how is it? Is Layden dead? He's fine. Layden was struck to death by tribulation lightning. Enlin replied with a smug expression. Struck to death by tribulation lightning? The flying sword god, Xianyuan Qing, and the others were all shocked to hear this. That's a little complicated, so let's talk about it after we get back. In any case, all you need to know is that I, Enlin, the Lord of Golden Lightning, can kill all my enemies, Enlin said in an indifferent voice. Everyone, Layden's death was definitely going to have a massive impact, and the Dark Marshlands was going to be plunged into a bloodbath. Cassidy, Merlin, and Tobias had to return to the sect first in order to avoid the Emperor's investigation. As Layden's former bodyguard, Bryce definitely wouldn't be able to return, so he transformed into a small sapling and lay on Enlin's head to conceal his identity as he followed the holy leader. Cassidy and the others were extremely envious of him. The secret decapitation team split up into two groups before slowly disappearing from the Dark Marshlands. At the very center of the Dark Marshlands, within the Divine Palace of Life, a certain jade badge shattered. The Emperor was at a critical juncture in his research of a mystic technique when his eyes suddenly turned crimson. Boom! A crimson pillar of blood burst through the roof of the Divine Palace and rose straight into the heavens. An extremely enraged voice erupted across the earth. Who dared to kill my son? I'm going to turn his entire family into blood ghosts and turn his sect into a blood prison. I'm going to torture everyone's souls for 1,000,000 years. Chapter 674. Emperor Yi Deng arrived at the Purple Snow Mountain, and a crimson sea surged through his eyes as he looked down at the ravaged ground. Judging from all of the strongholds, there were at least 8 people involved. How strange. How could Layden not have detected an attack of this magnitude? Emperor Yi Deng fell silent as he stared at the ghastly hole in the center of the spell formation. He made some calculations before flying toward a certain direction. He then stopped in front of a massive, inky black crater. What a terrifying power of lightning! To think that my son would die to tribulation lightning. A man stood in mid-air as crimson clouds surged and obscured the sky. It was as if the entire world had been plunged into hell. He stood on the spot for a long time before turning toward the east. There can only be one truth. Someone from the celestial court colluded with a spy from my tribe to kill my son while he was severely wounded. How detestable! Boom! An extremely fearsome streak of crimson light tore through the sky toward the east. Chaotic lightning suddenly fell from the sky to block the path of the streak of crimson light. Another earth-shattering battle erupted, and the dark marshlands was once again struck by a devastating disaster. Mountains crumbled, rivers were cut off, and cities were reduced to rubble in the end. The streak of crimson light fled toward the center of the dark marshlands. The lightning chased after it for over 5,000 kilometers to no avail and began to turn back. Thus, the battle drew to a conclusion, but the true impact was only just beginning. Layden was a return-to-void stage mighty figure with the highest chance of becoming a Tao integration stage true god, but he had fallen in the center of the dark marshlands. This news created a massive stir throughout the entire dark marshlands. My god, Layden is a mighty figure at the return-to-void pinnacle stage. Who would dare to attack him? Is it a Tao integration stage super mighty figure? Impossible. If it was a Tao integration stage mighty figure, they would definitely not be able to escape the detection of the emperors of the Divine Palace of Life. It was most likely another return-to-void stage mighty figure. To think that someone would kill Emperor Yi Deng's son right under his nose. Bad *SS. Apparently, a mysterious powerful being from the Celestial Court had colluded with a Blood Tribe mighty figure to do this. I wonder which one it was. The Dark Marshlands and the Celestial Court are going to be in turmoil. That's none of our business. Let's find some blood to drink. The Blood Tribe was like this. Even though they were discussing this matter fervently, they didn't have a strong sense of vengeance. Generally speaking, the battles they participated in had to be related to their own interests. If there was a large group of blood breeds clamoring to avenge the death of an almighty being, the blood breeds would have been wiped out a long time ago. Even Emperor Yi Deng temporarily repressed his urge to seek revenge and chose to investigate the situation in secret. He wanted to stabilize the situation first. He had no choice but to play it safe. He wasn't strong enough to fight against the one who used lightning. What else could he do? News of Layden's death spread like wildfire across the Kingdom of the Nine States, and everyone in the Kingdom of the Nine States celebrated with the news that the Celestial Court was most likely responsible for Layden's death. The Blood Tribe was a great enemy of the human race, so the fall of such a top-notch mighty figure was naturally a great thing for the human race. Furthermore, this was the doing of the Celestial Court, and the humans of the Kingdom of the Nine States once again experienced the power and reliability of the Celestial Court. If they knew that the main culprits behind this incident were just a group of students from the Celestial Court and their subordinates, who knew what kind of expression they would be wearing. Enlin and the others had already returned to Huangquan City using the concealment cloaks provided to them by the Celestial Arch. No one knew about this. Everything seemed to have returned to normal, and they resumed their idle lives. The only difference was that there was now a small blade of grass swaying in the wind above Enlin's head. Pfft! The adorable Miao Tian couldn't help but burst into laughter upon seeing Enlin's expression. Haha! Big brother En, your head is a little green. Are you trying to tell us something? Enlin's expression darkened. You don't know *T. Do you know anything about life? This blade of grass can give me power. Miao Tian burst into laughter and waved her hands. Alright, you're right, haha. I can't take it anymore, let me laugh for a while longer. Enlin left with a dark expression. What he had said was actually true. After Bryce transformed into a blade of grass, he stood on Enlin's head and practiced photosynthesis, which allowed him to infuse a portion of his life force into Enlin's body. In other words, if Bryce became stronger, he would also become stronger. This was an external cheat code. No matter how strange it was, Enlin wasn't going to turn it down. After all, he wasn't the type of person who paid attention to external appearances. Instead, he paid attention to inner qualities. For example, he didn't know whether his Tao partner-to-be, Su Xiaolan, was beautiful or not, but he knew that Su Xiaolan was a woman of extraordinary inner qualities and temperament. That was enough. Enlin stood on the city wall in a daze. He had nothing better to do, and the homeroom teacher prohibited all forms of entertainment. He thought about it for a moment before dragging Su Xiaolan over to play blind chess with him. Canon 8, Flat 1. Enlin placed his hands on the wall and looked into the distance with a gloomy expression. Su Xiaolan's brows furrowed as she said in a gentle voice, Rook 3, forward 9. Pawn 7, Flat 6. Enlin's eyes lit up. The battle slowly became more intense, and in the end, Su Xiaolan was checkmated by Enlin. This was not only a contest of chess skills, but it was also a contest of memory, spatial logic, and mental fortitude. Enlin won this battle through his own power. Ha ha! I won. Thank you for letting me win, Xiaolan. Enlin was very elated. Su Xiaolan rolled her eyes in an adorable manner. Can you give me 2 rooks this time? Sure, you can have both rooks, but you have to throw away a horse first. All right. Thus, the two of them began to play blind chess again. It had to be said, it was quite an interesting game. Xian Yuanqing stood outside the city and found an empty plot of land to ponder over his domain. From time to time, terrifying explosions would erupt, causing the earth to tremor violently. Thankfully, the soldiers and students on the city wall were already used to this, and they no longer panicked. They looked up at the rising flames and soil, and they were quite pleased with the spectacle. Sometimes they would even discuss the differences between this explosion and the last one. Time passed by slowly, and another day passed by in the blink of an eye. Early in the morning, Xiao Chao was swaying from side to side atop Enlin's head. The little fairy slowly opened her jewel-like eyes and stretched lazily. She could feel that her energy had been restored, and she was full of energy again. She turned toward Enlin, who was still fast asleep, and a sly smile appeared on her face as she pinched Enlin's nose in a mischievous manner. Enlin's brows furrowed slightly, as if he was feeling a little uncomfortable. The little fairy repressed her laughter and continued to pinch his nose. Slap! A slap flew through the air and sent the little fairy flying. Boom! The little fairy flew back like a cannonball, and a large hole was blasted into the city wall. Giant Enlin! Tina flew back in a disheveled manner before looking up at Enlin's palm with an enraged expression. Enlin was still fast asleep, so it was quite clear that the slap just then had been an unintentional one. Cultivators with lower cultivation bases would have to be careful, as pranks like this could easily be slapped to death. Tina saw that Enlin was still unconscious, and a dazzling white light erupted from her hands before enshrouding Enlin. Whoosh! The two of them disappeared from this world. In the next instant, the two of them appeared in the divine mirror world. It was also at this moment that a mystical voice sounded in Enlin's ears. This was like the judgment of the heavens, a paramount and inviolable voice. Wake up, giant Enlin! Chapter 675. Enlin finally experienced what it was like to be woken up by the entire world. The exhilaration coursed through his entire body, and he sat up with a start. Tina's delicate voice had entered his dreams. Phew! Holy F***ck. What the hell happened? He panted heavily. The awakening from the world made him feel like he had just had a nightmare. His heart was pounding, but his consciousness was also extremely clear. Haha, giant Enlin, you're finally awake. Tina's lithe and graceful figure flew around Enlin, and her white dress fluttered in the wind as a faint fragrance wafted through the air. This is... Enlin looked around to find that he was in the clouds with countless buildings down below. Qilu City? Holy F***ck. You can drag me into the divine mirror world while I'm sleeping? That's right, isn't it? A smug expression appeared on Tina's delicate features. Impressive. Enlin drew a sharp intake of breath. In the past, Tina could only drag Enlin into the divine mirror world with Enlin's consciousness, but now she was able to do it even without Enlin's consciousness. It had to be said that Tina was getting better and better. How's the world going? Unlin asked. It's still the same. The main thing is that I haven't used time acceleration yet, so there haven't been any changes. The only thing that's different is that Adam and Eve are already at the half-step soul formation stage and are preparing to transcend their tribulations, Tina replied. Then what are their domains? Unlin's eyes lit up with anticipation. Adam and Eve were different from other highly intelligent life forms. Not only were there extremely few of them, but they were also created by Tina and the entire world using Unlin's life force as a template without relying on the life essence of the 9 return to void stage mighty figures. It was exactly because of this that Unlin held these two in high regard. They're both very interesting. Tina smiled as a peculiar light flashed through her eyes. Don't keep me guessing. How are they interesting? Unlin was getting impatient. One is an extreme yang domain, while the other is an extreme yin domain. Tina smiled. Unlin came to a realization. Yin and yang complement each other. There's nothing wrong with that. Why did you look a little weird just now? Tina replied in a faint voice. That's because Adam has an extreme yin domain, while Eve has an extreme yang domain. Unlin. Tina and Unlin arrived at the library, and they were quite relieved to see that Adam and Eve were just as studious as ever. As a matter of fact, the two of them were putting some kind of life theory into practice again. Eve flared up with rage. You still dare to stand above me? Come down. Adam cried out, you're too much. You're pressing down on my hair. Hoo, puff, 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 that's it? Eve faltered upon hearing this. You can't use too much strength. Everything has to be done in moderation. Adam's voice was gentle. TCH useless thing. Eve curled her lip and kicked Adam away. Boom. A streak of golden light imbued with the power of extreme yang flashed past, instantly sending Adam flying like a cannonball. He crashed through a wall and fell onto the road. Ah! All the bystanders screamed and scattered in all directions at the sight of such a terrifying explosion. Adam, are you all right? Eve instantly put on her green robe before rushing toward Adam and covering his robe with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, I wasn't able to control my strength. A warm smile appeared on Adam's face. It's all right, Eve, I understand. Please be more careful next time. Domestic violence, damaging public property, affecting the city's appearance, and injuring bystanders are all serious crimes. Eve faltered slightly upon hearing this before a cold smile appeared on her face. What? Do you still want to arrest this old lady? It's all my fault, isn't it? Adam turned to Eve with a gentle expression. If I don't blame you for this, are you going to blame me? Hee. Eve chuckled lightly as golden light enveloped her fist before crashing it toward Adam's face. Thump, 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 bang, 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 clatter, 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 clatter. Puff, 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 duong, duong, duong. Who told you to shut up? You would have been able to take a kick from me under normal circumstances. You've been attaining a domain, but you've developed a soft and feminine personality. You've attained a weak domain, haven't you? Are you still a man? Eve unleashed a relentless barrage of attacks, and Adam howled with anguish as he defended himself. However, he chose not to retaliate as a pitiable expression appeared on his face. Unlin didn't know what to think about this. Everything was so bizarre. All he wanted to do was roar, "Give me back the innocent and kind Eve and the brave and righteous Adam." I only know that a person's personality and understanding of Tao can influence a soul formation stage domain. But why is it their soul formation stage domains that are able to influence their personalities? And Lin was perplexed. Sigh, it's all fate. Tina heaved a forlorn sigh before continuing. Their domains are all in harmony with the Tao of heaven and earth. To a certain extent, it can be said that their domains are guided by the will of the world, rather than a result of their personal understanding of heaven and earth, Tina explained. Make it simple. Unlin replied. That's fate. Tina sighed with emotion. Unlin, then how should we help him? To be honest, I'm really worried about Adam in his current state. He's such a coward. He's probably going to piss his pants at the sight of tribulation lightning. What if he gets struck to death by it? Unlin was a little hesitant. Adam is very weak, but he's very cautious. He'll be able to face tribulation lightning with all his might and unleash his full power. I'm a little concerned about Eve's situation. With her fiery temper, there's a high chance that she'll defy the natural order during her tribulation transcendence. A concerned expression appeared on Tina's face. Defy lightning? What's the harm in that? Isn't that normal? Unlin was perplexed. Tina turned to Unlin with a peculiar expression, but she didn't say anything in the end. Unlin still had feelings for Adam and Eve, so he naturally didn't want anything to happen to them during their tribulation transcendence. After thinking about it for a moment, he decided to lend them a hand. Tina was unable to do anything about this. Even though she had become one with this world and gained many privileges, there were some laws that she couldn't change. Otherwise, the world would descend into chaos. For example, heavenly tribulations were an important factor in the normal operation of the world. If she were to open a back door, the laws could crumble, and all living beings could perish. In fact, it could even lead to the destruction of the entire world. Unlin transformed into a cloud of mist as he flew toward Adam and Eve with an enigmatic expression on his face. Ahem. He cleared his throat before saying, Eve, a husband and wife should prioritize harmony. Any conflict should be resolved through communication, understand? Eve paused in the process of pummeling Adam, and a respectful expression appeared on her face as she turned to Unlin. Spokesperson Unlin, this is a family matter. Please understand, thank you. Eve continued to talk to Adam as she spoke. Unlin's lips twitched slightly. So even the words of God's spokesperson didn't work? However, he didn't give up. Instead, he continued in a meaningful and heartfelt voice, Eve, listen to me. Domestic violence won't solve any problems. How about this? Whoosh! A streak of golden light pierced through the air. It was a foot wearing a pair of cloth shoes. Boom! Unlin was still speaking when he was caught off guard by a kick to the face, and his body flew back like a cannonball. I told you not to interfere in my family matters, so what the F***ck are you doing here? Eve drew back her long, slender legs with an enraged expression. Chapter 676. Unlin crawled up from the ground and stared at Eve with a dumbstruck expression. Never would he have thought that Eve would dare to attack him, and this was all because of him trying to mediate the situation. He felt like his authority had been violated. He was God's messenger. How was he supposed to face the world after something like this had happened? At this moment, many onlookers were already discussing spiritedly among themselves. A window of a nearby shop had also opened, and many pairs of eyes peered through the window at the God's messenger who had just been kicked. The oracle, who had always been respected by people, was actually kicked on the street. This was definitely an earth-shattering event for the human race. Unlin patted the dust off his face with a nonchalant expression. Are you getting too arrogant, Eve, or am I, Unlin, too weak to even wield my saber? A hint of guilt flashed through Eve's face, but she retorted in a domineering manner, Who told you to meddle in my family's business? This is a private matter between me and Adam. Not even the heavenly emperor can interfere. Don't be like this, Eve. You're in the wrong here. Hurry up and apologize to God's messenger. Adam crawled up from the ground with a bruised and swollen face before grabbing tightly onto Eve's hand. Piss off. A golden light flashed, and Adam was sent flying by another punch. Unlin's eyelids twitched upon seeing this. You've gone too far. Looks like it's time for me to teach you a lesson. What do you want? Eve looked at Unlin with a cautious expression. However, before she had a chance to do anything, a white figure flashed before her, upon which a slap whistled through the air. Slap! The slap was imbued with earth-shattering power as it slammed into Eve's cheek, sending her flying for several hundred meters. Gasp! All of the onlookers were dumbstruck. Ancestor Eve really had been sent flying by God's messenger. Thinking back, the two of them had been on good terms with one another all those years ago. Were they finally going to turn against each other? A certain newspaper reporter had already captured this historic moment with an ancient camera, and his pen was flying through the air as he wrote the word "shocking" on a piece of white paper. The onlookers on the street retreated again. Although it was fun to watch the show, their lives were the most important. This was the pinnacle battle in human history. Everyone was well aware of the destructive power it had produced and how terrifying the aftermath of the battle was. "Please calm down, spokesperson N. My wife was indeed rude, but seeing as we've been friends for so long, please don't stoop to her level." Adam ran over with a bruised and swollen face and tried to wrap his arms around Enlin in an attempt to stop the battle. Slap! Enlin sent Adam flying with a palm before making his way toward Eve. Eve crawled up from the ground with flames of fury burning in her eyes. Rumble! The golden light suddenly spread out to a radius of 100 feet, bringing with it an extremely pure power of yang, burning everything it came into contact with into ashes. "Is this your personal domain? Not bad, not bad. This is indeed something to be proud of." Enlin rubbed his palms together with a faint smile on his face as he continued to make his way toward Eve. Eve raised her head with a confident expression. "Humph. Mind your own business. I'm going to beat the crap out of you right now." She stepped forward, and a ring of cloud and mist abruptly proliferated outward at a speed that broke through the sound barrier. The golden domain suddenly transformed into a massive golden sword with a piercingly sharp aura. As soon as the massive golden sword appeared, the surrounding air was warped by its scorching heat, and a deep, inky black fissure appeared on the ground. Not bad. As expected of a domain bestowed by the heavens. Just this attack alone is more powerful than many powerful beings who have already reached the soul formation stage, Enlin commented with a calm expression. The golden extreme yang sword brought with it a mighty might as it tore through the air, destroying everything in its path. "It's just that." Enlin extended a finger and pointed toward the huge golden sword. Ding! Boom! A crisp sound rang out, accompanied by a frenzied collision of energy, instantly razing all the nearby buildings to the ground. Enlin's fingertip clashed with the fearsome extreme yang sword, and he was able to forcibly halt the momentum of this extremely fearsome attack. Eve's pupils contracted as she stared at the scenes unfolding before her with incredulity etched on her face. "It's just that. Soul formation cultivators are still trash in front of me." Enlin shook his head and heaved a faint sigh. The golden lightning on his fingertip was imbued with destructive power, and it slowly tore through the massive sword from the tip of the sword. Boom! The golden lightning pulverized the massive extreme yang sword. Before Eve had a chance to react, Enlin appeared before her again, and his fist flew through the air toward her abdomen. It was a simple punch, but it was imbued with the power of the great Tao, and Eve was instantly blasted flying for over a kilometer as she became a tiny black dot in the distance. All of the onlookers were so shocked that their melon skins fell to the ground as they stared at the scenes unfolding before their eyes. This was indeed the most powerful battle in the history of the human race in this world. However, this was also the most powerful battle in the history of the human race. Their patriarch was completely powerless to retaliate. Enlin transformed into a cloud and mist, and moments later, he appeared before Eve again. Eve clutched her abdomen with a pained expression, and blood trickled from the corners of her lips. Her body shuddered slightly at the sight of Enlin's sudden appearance as a cloud and mist. "The power that you're so proud of, the power that you think you can do whatever you want in my eyes is nothing but a piece of cake. Tell me, what right do you have to be so arrogant?" Enlin drew his evil-slaying sword, and the inky black blade of the sword glowed with a menacing cold light. Eve curled up into a ball, and she was struck by a sense of powerlessness and fear for the first time. You. Spokesperson Shun, I was wrong, I was affected by my domain. Don't give me that. Unlin pointed his evil-slaying sword at Eve, and Eve's face paled even more upon seeing this. At this moment, Unlin was no longer the amiable and knowledgeable spokesperson Shun. Instead, he was a cold-blooded demon who was filled with killing intent. A domain and a person's personality have always influenced one another. As long as you try to restrain yourself, you'll be able to find a way to truly control your domain instead of becoming its puppet. In the end, you still lost yourself in your own power. The tip of Enlin's sword slowly approached Eve's slender neck, as if the god of death were about to claim her life. No. Eve's pride and battle intent had been crushed by Enlin's fearsome power, and she was as helpless as a little girl. Right at this moment, a figure suddenly rushed over. Adam held Eve tightly in his arms as he pleaded, Spokesperson Shun, Eve knows she was wrong. If you still have any anger left in you, please vent it on me. I'm willing to take all of the punishment in Eve's place. Adam, you. Tears welled up in Eve's eyes as she looked at the man before her. She didn't think that she would be protected by Adam. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Adam comforted her with a gentle smile. Adam tightened his grip on Eve's hand, as if he were trying to reassure Eve. How long had it been since Eve had felt this type of aura from Adam? This kind of bravery, this kind of determination to protect oneself at all costs, this is the true character of Adam. Adam's image in Eve's heart changed once again. He was no longer a weak and easily bullied man. Instead, he was a resolute husband. Chapter 677. Enlin was completely unmoved by the sight of the two of them embracing one another. In fact, he was even tempted to eat Debai's dog food. A cold smile appeared on his face. You want to take Eve's punishment? Very well, then come over here and fight me. This battle can only end with the death of one of us. Eve and Adam both faltered upon hearing this. Could Adam defeat Enlin? It was quite clear that he couldn't. As such, his only fate was death. Adam, I won't allow you to go. Eve was finally scared out of her wits, and she hugged Adam tightly as tears flowed silently from the corners of her eyes. Let go. Adam's eyes were filled with tenderness and determination. I won't let go. Eve hugged him tighter and tighter. I'm begging you, let go. Adam's brows furrowed. I don't want to. I refuse. As opposed to letting you die, I might as well let Enlin kill me. Eve refused with a stubborn expression. Enlin couldn't take it anymore, and 4 types of divine flames appeared in his left hand. Adam seemed to have sensed Enlin's killing intent, and he roared, Let go! Boom! A burst of blue energy suddenly erupted, instantly knocking Eve flying. A bone-chilling aura that was so powerful that it was almost tangible made the temperature of heaven and earth plummet. A series of blue chains fell from the sky, binding Eve to the ground. This was the first time Adam had attacked Eve after attaining his domain, and he was sacrificing himself to save her life. Eve had already been severely wounded by Enlin, and she found that she was unable to break free from Adam's shackles with her own power. It was quite clear that Adam possessed power that was no less powerful than hers. She yelled Adam's name, but Adam continued to make his way toward Enlin. His blue domain of extreme Een made all the dust particles in the air stop in their tracks, and everything in its wake was rendered motionless. Adam extended a respectful bow toward Enlin. Spokesperson Enlin, let's begin the battle. Enlin looked at him with an intrigued expression. Oh? You know there's no way you can defeat me. Why don't you strike a better pose and let me chop you down? Why go through so much trouble? Adam looked at Enlin calmly and said seriously, Oracle Enlin, although I don't like to fight, it doesn't mean that I don't know how to fight. I don't want to leave Eve. I don't want to die. So, I will fight. Even if there is no hope, I will fight with everything I have until the last moment to live. At this moment, Adam didn't have the weak look he had before. Unlin's lips curled up into a smile. All right, then I'll fulfill your wish. Come and fight. Rumble. Adam's extreme Een domain suddenly expanded to 1,000 feet, enveloping Unlin's body. Unlin was struck by a bone-chilling cold. This was very similar to Lu Qinhuan's domain, but Adam's domain focused more on the destruction of ice and snow. The surrounding plants were all corroded by the cold air. Starting from the cells, they broke down into blue powder and completely disappeared from the world. Any type of power, when used to the extreme, would cause all things to lose their balance and unleash extremely devastating destructive power. Never would Unlin have thought that Adam would also develop in this direction. In terms of how dangerous Adam was after his violent outburst, he was far more terrifying than Eve. Of course, this level of extreme Een power was nothing to Unlin, who had attained initial success stage in his body of the war god. He stepped forward, and his powerful body tore through the extreme Een domain as his evil-slaying sword slashed through the air toward Adam's body, leaving an inky black trajectory in its wake. He was extremely fast, and Adam had no time to evade in the face of the massive disparity in power. A black sword projection flashed, and Adam's body dispersed like a puddle of black ink before Unlin's eyes. Unlin's expression shifted slightly upon seeing this. Right at this moment, the black ink transformed into the sharpest blade projections, which tore through the air toward Unlin. Each and every strike was imbued with astonishing power, and each strike was comparable to a full-force attack from a soul formation stage powerful being. A faint smile appeared on Unlin's face as he slashed a dazzling net of sword projections through the air, shattering all of the oncoming blade projections. Not only that, but he also slashed his sword toward something in the air. A black sword projection flashed through the air. What followed was a pained groan. A handsome man appeared out of thin air before tumbling to the ground with blood gushing from his mouth. It's a great idea to fuse one's body and domain together to achieve the ability to transform into energy at will, but it's a pity. A white light flashed through Unlin's eyes. My eyes can see the truth. Adam struggled to stand up and slashed out a black crescent blade aura with a single hand. Unlin shattered the blade projection with ease before charging toward Adam. Arg! Even in the face of an insurmountable disparity in power, Adam still roared as he charged toward Unlin. Adam! Eve let loose a heart-wrenching cry as she struggled with all her might. Unlin thought about it for a moment. These two had most likely learned their lesson. Eve was no longer blindly arrogant and disdainful toward others. She had learned to respect her husband. Adam was also able to stand up and fight bravely like a man. He looked at the oncoming Adam and was just about to kick him aside. Right at this moment, a sudden turn of events occurred. Adam suddenly unleashed countless bolts of terrifying lightning. These bolts of lightning came without any warning or energy fluctuations, but they were extremely powerful. Unlin was caught off guard, and he was blasted flying before tumbling to the ground. He stared at Adam with astonishment in his heart. Could it be that this brat had self-detonated in a dire situation? However, he carefully sensed Adam's power, only to discover that Adam hadn't become more powerful. It was just that his cultivation base seemed to have wavered. Could it be? Unlin turned toward Eve before drawing a sharp intake of breath. An exquisitely beautiful woman with a domain as bright as the sun had already shattered Adam's restriction. She stood up, and lightning clouds surged overhead for close to 10 kilometers. Was she going to transcend her tribulation? Adam, are you all right? Eve turned to Adam with a concerned expression. Due to the restrictions of her tribulation, she was currently in the tribulation transcendence stage, and couldn't move. Adam was very elated. I'm fine, Eve. You're finally going to take this step, you. Arg! Before he had a chance to say anything else, an extremely fearsome burst of gravitational force drew his body toward Eve. Splat! The two of them hugged each other tightly. Unlin's mouth gaped open in shock. She was about to transcend her tribulation, yet she still didn't forget to show off? No, he could see that both Eve and Adam were also completely dumbstruck, and they most likely didn't know what was going on either. Boom. At this moment, Adam's domain also suddenly erupted. Crack. A certain shackle was broken, and his aura soared explosively. A frosty aura enshrouded heaven and earth before clashing with Eve's scorching domain, causing heaven and earth to darken. In the sky above, the lightning clouds surged even more violently, and the area encompassed by the dark clouds had already expanded to a radius of 10 kilometers. The entire sky had darkened, and only the clashing domains were particularly eye-catching. Enlin's mouth gaped open before he finally managed to speak with difficulty. Could this be a double tribulation transcendence? Chapter 678. This was definitely going to be tribulation transcendence in pairs. F***ck. Even tribulation transcendence had to be done in pairs. Enlin took a deep breath as 10,000 alpacas stampeded over his heart. Adam and Eve were also terrified as they looked up at the surging lightning in the sky. The terrifying lightning might accumulated in the sky was extremely alarming. Don't be afraid, there are only 49 bolts of tribulation lightning. Use all of your power to resist it, and you'll be able to successfully progress to the soul formation stage. Enlin yelled to the two of them. Spokesperson of God, you. Eve stared at Enlin with a slightly dazed expression. You idiot. Spokesperson of God didn't even plan to kill us. If he really wanted to kill me, he would have done it with a single sword strike. Why would he be standing off to the side to warn us? Adam quickly came to his senses as he bowed deeply to Enlin. Enlin liked people like this, and a smile appeared on his face. I just wanted to change your personalities before your tribulation transcendence. There's no need to thank me, it's all up to you now. I hope you can safely transcend your tribulation. He clasped his hands behind his back as he spoke with a nonchalant smile on his face. F***ck off. You were just putting on an act? Are you F***king retarded? You're so powerful, what if you accidentally killed Adam and I? Also, were you happy to see me and Adam being separated by life and death? Were you happy to see me crying there? You freak. Eve immediately flared up with rage upon hearing this. Enlin, so, the beatdown treatment didn't work? Should he beat her up again? Eve wanted to hurl more abuse at Enlin, but Adam stopped her. Their personal domains clashed against each other uncontrollably. Then, slowly, they actually showed signs of fusing. The power of extreme yin and extreme yang could clash and cancel each other out. But at the same time, they could also transform into one another. Now, the golden extreme yang and the blue extreme yin were fusing together to form a milk-like domain of gold and blue. Even more terrifying energy fluctuations began to proliferate, and even Enlin's heart jolted with shock at this power. At this moment, the lightning in the sky was already beginning to show its ferocity. Rumble! A bolt of white lightning tore through the sky, bringing endless light to the world. Enlin sensed a power that could purify everything in the world from the light. It was so pure, as if it contained infinite possibilities. Then, a pitch-black lightning bolt tore through the clouds. The pitch-black lightning seemed to be able to absorb all light, causing the world to suddenly darken as if chaos had descended. Holy **T, there are two types of lightning? Enlin smacked his lips. He could sense the deathly stillness and destruction from the black lightning. Its characteristics were very obvious and very powerful. There seemed to be nothing wrong with two people transcending the tribulation and then having two types of lightning. Moreover, they were all cheats, so their thunder tribulations were a little special, which was not a problem. Enlin could accept it. However, who could tell him why the two of them had to hold hands during the heavenly tribulation? Yes. In front of Enlin, Adam and Eve were tightly holding hands. The two of them were hugging each other before, but now they were holding hands. Even their domains were closely intertwined. What the hell were they trying to do? Why are you two holding hands? Can't you just transcend the tribulation? Do you have to do this? And Lin was a little displeased. He was feeling very lonely. Both Adam and Eve wore awkward expressions. It's not that we don't want to let go, it's just that there's a mysterious power that forces our bodies to be in contact with each other. It's a very powerful gravitational force, and we can't let go. Adam sighed as he explained. He swung his hand as he spoke, but Eve's hand also swung back and forth as if it were glued to his hand. And Lin, forget it, I'll just let them fend for themselves. As soon as he finished speaking, a black thunderbolt descended from the sky, carrying with it a terrifying power of destruction, directly bombarding Adam's body. The tribulation lightning had begun. The black divine lightning pierced through their domains before striking Adam's head. Adam's body shuddered, and lightning flowed through his body before spreading to Eve's arm. Eve then began to tremble as well. Boom! A bolt of white divine lightning fell toward Eve. Eve's body trembled slightly as lightning flowed through her body before spreading to Adam's body through their linked hands, and Adam also began to tremble. And Lin's expression darkened as he looked at the two of them trembling in joy. Adam's thunder, Eve followed suit. Eve's thunder, Adam followed suit. Was this a buy one get one free deal just because they were holding hands with tribulation lightning? This was truly an eye-opener for him. Even though Lin felt like it was a little painful to watch, the divine lightning was still crashing down, and it was basically alternating between black and white lightning. Adam and Eve wore pained expressions, but they were also doing their best to resist the tribulation lightning. Eve was no longer violent and aggressive, and Adam was no longer cowardly. Instead, he had become more courageous. The two of them worked together to resist the tribulation lightning, and their progress was very smooth. Their auras became more and more powerful, and the refinement of their soul formation stage bodies was also gradually completed. However, as time passed, the power of the tribulation lightning became more and more fearsome, and Adam and Eve's bodies were already riddled with wounds. 40 bolts of black lightning, 40 bolts of white lightning, 41 bolts of black lightning. Initially, the two of them were both in pain and happiness, but now their expressions were filled with agony as they gritted their teeth and persevered. All the way until the 47th bolt of black lightning. The destructive power within a radius of over 100 feet had been reduced to dust. Adam's face was charred black, and his body swayed slightly as if he were about to collapse. Adam! Eve let loose a panicked cry. Don't worry about me. Hurry up and resist with all your might. Adam's eyes clouded over, and he threw up a mouthful of blood. Boom! 47 bolts of white lightning fell, and both Eve and Adam's body trembled uncontrollably. Both of them were on the brink of death. And Lin was very concerned upon seeing this, and he immediately offered words of encouragement. Hold on, don't give up. There are only 2 bolts of tribulation lightning left. Bullsh *T. Eve panted. There are clearly 4 bolts. Adam's expression was filled with despair. And Lin, that made so much sense. And Lin gritted his teeth. But is there a need to complain at a time like this? You guys have to hold on. Adam, if I die, you have to stay alive. You idiot, you beat me and scold me, but if you leave, I really might not be used to it. Perhaps I'll leave with you. No. I want you to stay alive. I love you, Adam. I love you too, Eve. The two of them looked at one another lovingly before closing their eyes and kissing one another. And Lin's eyes widened, and his mouth gaped open as he stared at the scenes unfolding before his eyes with incredulity. Come on. You're transcending tribulation. You're transcending tribulation. What the *CK are you two kissing one another? Are you trying to be a pair of lovebirds? Can't you consider the feelings of the spectators? And Lin was about to have a mental breakdown, and he suddenly wanted these two to fail their tribulation transcendence. Please, Big Brother Divine Lightning, strike this lovey-dovey pair to death. Chapter 679. And Lin felt like this was the most unbearable tribulation transcendence he had ever seen in his entire life. Why were they kissing each other instead of transcending their tribulation? The 48th bolt of tribulation lightning began to gather. Darkness sucked away all light in the world, and an extremely terrifying bolt of black lightning fell to the ground before landing on Adam's head. Terrifying lightning surged through his body before spreading to Eve's body through their arms and mouths. The two of them then began to tremble as they kissed. And Lin's expression darkened upon seeing this. This was way too demonic. Was tribulation transcendence like this really fun? Unfortunately, the bolt of black lightning didn't kill Adam and Eve. They hugged even more tightly as an even more powerful aura erupted from their bodies. The domain of gold and blue slowly transformed into an inky black color, as if all things in this world were about to be destroyed, and it was filled with despair and death. Adam and Eve still had their eyes closed as they kissed passionately, as if they were cherishing the final moments of their relationship. They didn't care about the lightning surging in the sky, they didn't care about life and death. That's right, even if they were facing a terrifying tribulation, even if they were about to die, they still couldn't stop their love. Nothing could stop them from flaunting their love, even if they had to die. They were going to die kissing and hugging each other. Boom! A bolt of white lightning pierced through the inky black domain and struck Eve's body, as if the heavens had been enraged. Immense power instantly engulfed Eve and Adam, and dazzling lightning exploded. The two of them were still connected, and Lin knew that they had already transcended the 96th bolt of tribulation lightning. They were still alive. However, they were on the brink of death. And Lin could see that they had both reached their limit. They didn't even have the energy to kiss, and they could only hug and look at each other passionately. The 49th bolt of divine lightning was the most powerful bolt of divine lightning. Their bodies were already on the brink of collapse, and there was no way they could withstand such terrifying power. Rumble, an inky black bolt of divine lightning began to appear in the dark sky. It wasn't piercing, but it was imbued with an aura of destruction and finality. The black divine lightning didn't fall. Instead, an extremely dazzling bolt of white lightning tore through the sky before crashing into the black divine lightning. Crack, sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The two completely different types of lightning clashed and combined to form an extremely terrifying bolt of black and white lightning. As soon as it appeared, the entire lightning cloud was sliced in half. The fearsome power swept gale-force winds for thousands of meters, and Adam and Eve's bodies fluttered erratically like willow leaves. And Lin looked up at the bolt of divine lightning in the sky with a grave expression as he contemplated how to save the two of them. This bolt of divine lightning was far more powerful than any of the previous bolts of lightning. If this continued, Adam and Eve would definitely be screwed. Little Na, can you unleash a blessing to heal their injuries and enhance their defensive prowess? And Lin asked in a soft voice. At this moment, a gentle voice sounded from above. I can't do that, Giant Lin. If I interfere, the heavenly tribulation will become even more terrifying, and it'll be far more terrifying than what I can unleash upon them. The best way is to let them deal with it themselves. In the worst-case scenario, he wanted to use his lightning manipulation technique to direct the bolt of lightning toward himself. Even though it wouldn't be able to resolve the issue, it would be best to let them do it themselves. In the worst-case scenario, he even wanted to use his lightning manipulation technique to direct that bolt of lightning toward himself. Even though that wouldn't solve the root of the problem, he could take it one step at a time. Take a look at their domains. Do you see any changes? Tina's voice sounded again. She said in a relaxed tone, Look at their domains. Did you notice any changes? And Lin looked at their domains to discover that the inky black domain was becoming more and more profound. A streak of white light suddenly appeared within the domain, tearing through the boundless darkness before expanding relentlessly. Soon, the domain became black and white in color. They fused as they resisted and collided. In the end, they destroyed one another and created another, forming a great harmony of power. Heaven and earth tremored violently as a purple mist rose into the air, enshrouding the two of them. A yin-yang diagram appeared within their domains before slowly rising into the sky. In the sky above, the final bolt of divine lightning fell with earth-shattering power, as if it were a sword of divine retribution, tearing through heaven and earth. Space crumbled and all things were annihilated in its wake. At this moment, the two of them seemed so tiny and insignificant in the face of the lightning, as if they could collapse at any moment. Boom! Lightning exploded. Dazzling lightning lit up the entire world. The sound of thunder shook the heavens, causing the air within a radius of close to 5 kilometers to tremor violently. The entire heaven and earth began to tremor violently in the face of this attack. Unlin's eyes widened as he stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before his eyes. In the end, that bolt of terrifying lightning was blocked by the yin-yang diagram. Not only that, but he could also see that the power of the tribulation lightning was slowly being absorbed by the yin-yang diagram. As a result, the yin-yang diagram began to come to life, as if he could see nothingness and creation, life and death. What kind of domain was this? It was way too bad *SS. Rumble. The lightning clouds rumbled, as if they were unwilling to give up. However, all 49 bolts of tribulation lightning had already fallen, and the lightning clouds covering a radius of 10 kilometers still slowly dissipated. Sunlight shone down upon the earth again. Tears welled up in Adam and Eve's eyes as they hugged one another tightly before slowly collapsing from exhaustion. Unlin transformed into a cloud and mist before flashing toward the two of them and wrapping his arms around them before unleashing a healing spell technique. "Thank you, spokesperson." Eve turned to Unlin with gratitude before falling unconscious. Adam didn't even get a chance to say anything before he fainted from exhaustion. Unlin heaved a forlorn sigh as he shook his head. "Even though they tortured me thousands of times, I still couldn't bear to see them suffer. After all, I watched them grow up, so how could I not care?" Unlin took the two of them back to the human palace to recuperate and instructed their children to take good care of them before departing. Tina reappeared in her human form with a pure and sweet smile on her face. She was clearly in a very good mood. "Giant Unlin, thanks to Adam and Eve's breakthroughs, I've received another authority." "What authority?" Unlin's eyes lit up with excitement. Due to the limitations of the world, Tina was able to do whatever she wanted, but in order to maintain peace and stability in the world, she didn't receive many authorities. This breakthrough in the human life form had a significant impact on the world, and she had also received a new authority. This was quite a pleasant surprise. The world has become even more intelligent, and there's an extremely small chance that all living things in this world will evolve into highly intelligent life forms. I've received the authority to create a new type of highly intelligent life form out of thin air. Tina spoke with a smug expression. Create a new type of highly intelligent life form out of thin air. Unlin repeated Tina's words as waves of shock surged through his heart. Chapter 680. You said you can create life out of thin air? Unlin took a deep breath and asked again. Tina nodded. That's right. All you have to do is set up the material and energy system of a life form, as well as all of its characteristics and parameters. Then, you can bestow a soul upon it and the life form can be created. Of course, I may not succeed in creating life. It still has to go through the automatic screening and elimination of the world's consciousness. Also, it will consume a lot of energy, so I have to use it carefully. A thought suddenly occurred to Unlin. By the way, how are the spirit-engulfing beasts doing? The spirit-engulfing beast's intelligence and animal instincts had been adjusted to the maximum by Tina, and in terms of stealth, slaughter, and growth potential, they were even more powerful than highly intelligent life forms. It could be said that they were the life forms closest to highly intelligent creatures. Tina pursed her lips with a resigned expression upon hearing Unlin's question. Ever since soul formation stage cultivators began to appear in the 9 tribes, the spirit-engulfing beasts have been subjected to one large-scale extermination operation after another. Now they can only roam around in sparsely populated places. If it weren't for the fact that they can photosynthesize, they would have starved to death a long time ago. Unlin, what a failure! They clearly had the god of creation, but they were still so useless. How about adding intelligence to them? Unlin hesitated for a moment before suggesting. Tina's eyes lit up, and her golden wings became a lot more vibrant as a result of her emotional fluctuations. Good idea. Using the spirit-engulfing beast as a ready-made template can save energy as well. She and Unlin hit it off very well, mainly because both of them were extremely obsessed with the spirit-engulfing beast. Dazzling white light began to radiate from Tina's slender body as a boundless world flashed through her eyes. She extended a slender finger and pointed one finger at the sky and the other at the earth as she uttered a divine decree. Spirit-engulfing beast, heavenly revelation. Invisible waves merged with heaven and earth. In an instant the entire world began to stir. A vast and mighty power covered every corner of the world, and a mysterious power fused into the bodies of the pitch-black and powerful monsters, changing the world with a single word. This was truly invincible power. All of the spirit-engulfing beasts were rooted to the spot as their bodies trembled violently. All of the spirit-engulfing beasts howled in agony as if they were enduring some kind of excruciating agony. Boom, 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 one spirit-engulfing beast after another exploded. Not all living beings could withstand this kind of power that forced living beings to evolve. Living beings that couldn't bear it could only be destroyed. In the end, only 1/10 of the hundreds of thousands of spirit-engulfing beasts would survive. They wandered to every corner of the world. Although their red pupils were cruel and bloodthirsty, there was also a certain intelligence and forbearance, as if they were curiously sizing up the world. Haha, success! As expected of little Na. And Lin clapped his hands in praise upon seeing the astral devouring beast's condition through the crystalline screen. Suddenly, heaven and earth trembled again. Some kind of world consciousness automatically covered everything in the world. Tina's expression shifted as she exclaimed in shock, "It's over! The will of the world is beginning to devour these spirit-engulfing beasts. Is it really not going to work, Unlin?" All of the spirit-engulfing beasts had thought that they had survived a tribulation and had become smarter, but to their surprise, another burst of mighty power of heaven and earth fused into their bodies. Boom, boom, boom! One spirit-engulfing beast after another exploded, as they were unable to withstand this terrifying power. That power was too terrifying, and his body couldn't bear it at all. They howled in agony. However, their intelligence had been enhanced by the power of Tina's consciousness, so they weren't going to just sit and wait for death. In order to resist this power, the spirit-engulfing beasts' bodies began to slowly transform in a certain direction. Their bodies slowly became transparent, and this was the transformation of their physical bodies into their consciousness bodies. That's right, they were using the power that Tina had bestowed upon them. Most of the spirit-engulfing beasts collapsed during this transformation, but a small portion of them managed to completely disintegrate their physical bodies and survive with their consciousness as the core. Their bodies floated in midair. Their consciousness had no mass to begin with, so this wasn't all that strange. All of the spirit-engulfing beasts looked at their own bodies before suddenly cackling. This body is awesome. It's light and carefree. This is true freedom, this is true life. Come on, let's go eat the holy martial clan's brains. Tui, what's so good about brains? If we're going to eat them, we'll eat them as light as a feather. What do you mean by light as a feather? Bodies like ours can eat consciousness? Let's give it a try. All of the evolved spirit-engulfing beasts began to disappear into thin air as they slowly advanced forward. Tens of thousands of evolved spirit-engulfing beasts had survived the backlash of heaven and earth's consciousness, thereby allowing them to survive as a completely new life form, even though there were only close to 10,000 of them left. However, the structure of the world had truly changed. This was because they were the 11th highly intelligent tribe. Lin and Tina stared blankly at the scenes unfolding on the crystal screen with speechless expressions on their faces. So, my omnipotent goddess, the omniscient little Na, does this count as a success? Lin looked at the completely different spirit-engulfing beasts as he spoke in a slow voice. It should be a success, Tina replied in a soft voice, but she wasn't very confident. Lin, why do I feel like they're a little similar to the Void Spirit tribe on the Tai Chu continent? You're probably right. Tina's lips twitched. Spirit bodies are essentially consciousness bodies, so there's no fundamental difference between the Void Spirit tribe and the spirit-engulfing beasts. She really didn't know what expression she should be wearing anymore. Was this a F***king coincidence? Thinking back to a long time ago, she had told Lin that one of the 10 Realm Guardian tribes was missing, and she was going to capture a few Void Spirit tribe living beings from the Tai Chu continent. But now, even if the 10 Realm Guardian tribes weren't complete, this world was going to help her? Lin massaged his brows. Come on, this is the master of this world. Can't you be a little more reliable? Probably, and probably are adjectives that should be used by a super big shot? Tina pouted as she looped her arms around Lin's arm with an aggrieved expression. But you're the master of this world. Why don't you know that? Lin was quite surprised to hear this. Holy F***ck, this really does make sense. He had almost forgotten that he was Tina's master. He had always been proud of being God's spokesperson. In other words, he had always been proud of being Tina's lackey. Holy F***ck. Holy F***ck. His authority as a master had been completely obliterated. Lin finally came to his senses. He sighed with emotion that he was probably a fake master. To think that he was so used to running errands for little Na. He then looked at the gentle, soft, and perfect elf beside him. He could not help but fall into deep thought. Chapter 681. Phew! Tina yawned lightly as her emerald eyes became a little misty. Giant Lin, I just unleashed my heavenly enlightenment power, so I'm really tired now. How about I go out and rest for a while? Lin nodded before a thought occurred to him. Your true body is here now, so why can't you rest in this world? Tina blinked her emerald eyes with a smile. Giant Lin, even though I've fused as one with this world and possess limitless authority and power, I still need to rely on the essential power of my body. In other words, my essential power is actually my other self on the Tai Chu continent. While I'm constantly using my authority and power here, my other self's power is also fading away, and I have to return to the Tai Chu continent to replenish and recover. Lin came to a sudden realization upon hearing this, and another theory popped up in his mind. According to Tina, even though she was the god of this world, her power was still limited by the individual on the Tai Chu continent. Didn't that mean that the Tai Chu continent was of a higher level than this divine mirror world? Was that why the Tai Chu continent was of a higher level? He knew that the level of a world could be elevated. Could it be that Tina's divine mirror world could rival, or even surpass the Tai Chu continent one day? When that time came, wouldn't Tina descend to the Tai Chu continent like a god of creation with a higher level of authority? With this in mind, Lin couldn't help but burst into laughter. He shook his head and cast aside this absurd fantasy. Tina held onto Lin's hand, and they returned to the city wall of Huang Quan City in a flash of white light. At this moment, the sun was high up in the sky. Lin found Dabai and asked him how many days had passed, only to find that only 3 days had passed. He did a quick calculation and found that there were only 5 days left until the end of term examinations. Lin placed Tina on Dabai's back and instructed Dabai to look after this sleeping fairy before taking a stroll around Huangquan City. Many of the students would greet Lin warmly whenever they saw him. Clearly, in their hearts, Lin was a person who was very worthy of being welcomed and respected. Lin's heart was filled with emotion. After 3 years of relentless struggle, he had finally caught up to the unbelievably handsome big brother Cheng and the unbelievably beautiful Su Su, becoming the most popular student in the class. You could even say that he was the most popular person on campus. Sigh, it's all thanks to my perseverance along the way. Glory after glory is hard to come by. Lin's eyes were slightly red. He was moved by himself. Then, he saw a white figure 1,000 meters away from the city wall. It was Brother Cheng. He was still training hard in his domain. Around him were holes of various sizes. Fortunately, the land here was not valuable. No, fortunately, it was the territory of the Dark Marshlands. Otherwise, who knew how much money he would have to pay? After walking for a while, Lin saw Su Xiaolan and Su Qianyun. The two of them were whispering to one another, and Su Xiaolan had even pulled out her dragon sparrow sword and was waving it around. Huh? What are you two talking about? Lin made his way over to them with a curious expression. A blush appeared on Su Qianyun's face as she lowered her head. Go away. Su Xiaolan glared at Lin. Lin faltered slightly before leaving with a gloomy expression. What the hell? Was there some kind of secret that he couldn't hear? Thus, he continued on his way until he encountered Xiao Zhe, who was meditating. Master, you're finally back. Xiao Zhe's eyes were clear and excited. I'm back. How have you been? Lin nodded with a smile on his face at the sight of his enthusiastic disciple. Master, after that battle with Leiden, I feel like there are still many flaws in my defense. Can you instruct me? Xiao Zhe looked at Lin with a scorching light in his eyes. Lin's lips twitched. He was supposed to instruct a mighty figure at the pinnacle of the Return to Void intermediate stage? What a joke. Ahem. I don't have a deep understanding of the Tao of defense. That's not it. Master, you have a soul formation stage body, but your defenses are so powerful that even the average Return to Void stage mighty figure can't break through them. You must have an extremely deep understanding of the Tao of defense to be able to do this. Xiao Zhe looked at Lin with a resentful expression. Master, are you still looking down on me? Don't worry, I'll do my best. I can wait. I'm not looking down on you. I really don't know how to instruct you. As for why my defenses are so powerful, it's all because I've achieved initial success in my body of the War God. Lin's expression darkened. Why did he feel like he was in a TV series? Xiao Zhe blinked his eyes and murmured to himself, Body of the War God? If it's a divine body, then you must have some understanding of the defensive aspects of the divine body. Otherwise, how could you cultivate such an extremely powerful divine body? Lin almost choked upon hearing this. Xiao Zhe's words did make a lot of sense. You know that I was only able to successfully cultivate my divine body after absorbing Golden Realm Essence crystals. Master, don't lie to me. Isn't that the energy used to cultivate the divine body? It's completely different from the enlightenment of the divine body and the integration of the Tao realm. One is energy, and the other is Tao air. Would you believe me if I told you that I absorbed the Golden Realm Essence crystals and attained the initial success stage of the body of the War God? Wah! Master, it's fine if you don't want to teach me, but don't treat me like an idiot. Tears welled up in Xiao Zhe's eyes. He was the #1 disciple, but not only had he not received any guidance, he had also been treated like an idiot by his master. With this in mind, he was extremely depressed, and tears began to flow from his eyes. Lin was also quite depressed. It wasn't that he didn't want to teach his disciple. The problem was that he didn't know how to teach. He didn't even know how to cultivate, so how was he supposed to teach his disciple? So what on earth did he know? Unlin's brows furrowed as he fell into deep thought. Unlin hesitated momentarily before finally speaking. Xiao Zhe's breathing accelerated as he stared at Unlin with a scorching gaze. "Do you want to learn how to cook from me?" Unlin asked with a sincere expression. Xiao Zhe's body swayed slightly, and he threw up a mouthful of blood. That's right, Unlin finally knew what he knew after much thought. Due to the frying pan, he had persevered in studying cooking, and his cooking skills had become more and more refined. This was the only skill that he could bring to the table. "But master, I'm not interested in cooking." Xiao Zhe clasped a hand over his chest. "Then I have nothing to teach you." Unlin heaved a forlorn sigh. Xiao Zhe was on the verge of tears. Unlin couldn't bear to see this, and he thought for a moment before suggesting, "How about you learn how to flex from me?" Xiao Zhe. Chapter 682. He was asking his master how to perfect his Tao of defense, only to be asked if he wanted to learn how to cook and flex. What kind of experience was that? In any case, Xiaozi had a look of despair on his face. He looked at Enlin with a resigned expression, and the two of them fell silent. Master, I think I should figure out how to perfect my Tao of defense myself." Xiao Zhe forced a smile onto his face. Enlin looked at the handsome young man before him and scratched his head. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, and he smiled. "Wait, I have the true intent of a cultivation technique that I can teach you." The handsome young man glanced at Enlin. "What cultivation technique? Is it a cultivation technique for repairing cars? Or is it the true intent of the new Eastern language?" Enlin's lips twitched. "Am I that kind of person?" Xiao Zhe didn't say anything. He thought to himself, "Don't you know whether I am or not? This is a real cultivation technique." A golden lotus flower suddenly appeared on Enlin's forehead as a vast and boundless power instantly proliferated forth like the boundless power of the earth. Xiao Zhe's body trembled as he felt the power. "Is this the power of Master's divine body?" "That's right, this is a part of the power of the God of War. It is known as the Earth Lotus Supreme Skill, and it is a supreme Earth-type cultivation technique. After mastering it, one can control the power of the earth and forge an invincible body." Enlin nodded. Even though he didn't know how to cultivate the body of the God of War, when he obtained the Earth Lotus Supreme Skill, he had received the cultivation technique, moves, true intent, and Tao realm. It was because of this that he understood that the Earth Lotus Supreme Skill could not only allow him to use the power of the earth, but it could also forge an extremely powerful physical defense. The surface of the body of the God of War was also constructed with the Earth Lotus Supreme Skill as its core, which was why Enlin had such thick skin. He could teach him the Earth Lotus Supreme Skill. "Do you want to learn it?" Enlin asked with a smile. "Yes." Xiao Zhe nodded like a chick pecking at grains. Enlin didn't hold anything back and imparted the true intent and mantra of the Earth Lotus Supreme Skill to Xiaozi. As for the profound enlightenment of the Tao realm, that wasn't something that could be taught verbally. Enlin was only responsible for demonstrating the Earth Lotus Supreme Skill a few times. How much he could comprehend would depend on Xiaozi's comprehension ability. After Xiaozi received Enlin's teachings, he asked a few more questions. After receiving the answers, he happily found a place to study and comprehend on his own. The Earth Lotus Supreme Skill was imbued with an extremely powerful defensive Tao, and even if Xiaozi couldn't master it, he would still be able to gain a lot of insight into his own defensive Tao. Enlin looked at his disciple who was working hard and nodded with a gratified expression. His prestige as a teacher was finally preserved. He continued to stroll leisurely along the top of the city wall, and soon met the flying sword god who took the initiative to greet him. "Hi, teacher." Enlin took the initiative to greet her. "Enlin, you're finally back." The flying sword god quickly made his way toward Enlin. Enlin's heart jolted upon seeing the flying sword god, and he asked, "What is it?" "There are two things." The flying sword god replied, The first thing is that Cassidy, Tobias, and Merlin received a piece of information from the Celestial Court, which is that Emperor Deng seems to be desperately trying to find a mole in the Blood Tribe. As such, the development of the Blood Tribe's underground network might have to be delayed for a while. In order to avoid the limelight, they have entered the Blood Tribe Holy Land again to search for opportunities, and they won't be coming out for a while. Unlin nodded upon hearing this. What's the second thing? The second thing is that Songlan City of the Gem State has been conquered by the Blood Tribe army, and over 300,000 humans have had their blood sucked dry. Apparently, the army is being led by a return-to-void stage Blood Tribe mighty figure by the name of Morton, and he's one of Emperor Deng's most trusted subordinates. After slaughtering an entire city of living beings, they retreated to the dark marshlands. The powerful beings of the Celestial Court's executive department gave chase, but they were unable to kill Morton, the flying sword god said with furrowed brows. Unlin nodded. This was most likely a form of revenge, or a test by Deng. According to department head Golden Tiger, Morton possesses a return-to-void intermediate stage cultivation base, and even a return-to-void stage mighty figure would find it very difficult to kill him. Morton's attack has only just begun, and the 20 cities around Songlan City may all become his targets soon. The flying sword god turned toward Unlin as he spoke. You want me to go to Songlan City and kill Morton? Unlin asked. The flying sword god nodded with a slightly sheepish expression. Huangquan City is under the protection of Emperor Tian Huang, so it's no longer in danger. Hence, the Celestial Court's executive department would like you to go there and help. After all, they're well aware of just how powerful you and your group are. Of course, this is all up to you, so it's up to you whether you want to go or not. Unlin pondered for a moment, mainly thinking about the threat posed by Emperor Deng. However, he nodded without much hesitation when he thought about how many cities would fall if he didn't go. That's fine, I'll go. Seeing Unlin agree so readily, Sword Immortal Ling Xiao couldn't help but stare deeply into his eyes. Then you have to be careful on this trip, don't force yourself. Don't worry, I won't force myself. Unlin waved a hand before asking the flying sword god for more information before heading to Songlan City with his friends. In the end, Su Xiaolan was the only one who was willing to go with him. Big Brother Qing wanted to cultivate his domain, and Su Qianyun felt like she wouldn't be of much help anyway, so she was focusing on her Dao realm in order to progress to the soul formation stage. As for Miao Tian, Luo Zipping, and the others who had volunteered, Unlin was afraid that something might happen to them, so he refused. In order to avoid detection by the Blood Tribe, Bryce continued to photosynthesize in Huangquan City. Thus, Unlin and Su Xiaolan rose into the air atop Dabai's back, while Xiao Chou and Xiao Zhe flew toward Songlan City of the Gem State. Songlan City was located 1,600 kilometers to the north of Huangquan City, and it was also a large and majestic city. There was an extremely massive lake nearby that separated the Kingdom of the Nine States from the dark marshlands, and it was a vast and boundless place. It was for this reason that the city was named Songlan City. The huge white dog flew through the clouds and drew a sharp intake of breath as it looked down at the devastated city below. Big Brotherin, this is too much, woof. A frosty expression appeared on Unlin's face as killing intent seeped out from his eyes. Morton, is it? If I don't kill you, I'm not going back to the Celestial Court. The city walls of Songlan City had collapsed, and all of the residents and soldiers had their blood sucked dry before turning into desiccated corpses with expressions of agony and despair still lingering on their faces. He could even see the dead students of the Celestial Court. Hundreds of thousands of people in the entire city had died in this manner, and everything was deathly silent. Several dozen members of the Celestial Court Executive Department were collecting these corpses in order to bury them all. Elsewhere, a dozen or so cultivators wearing the uniforms of Celestial Court students were kneeling on the ground and sobbing. In front of them, A man in a green Taoist robe half knelt on the ground with his sword in his hand. His head was bowed and his face was shriveled and lifeless. Chapter 683. The 16 students faltered slightly at the sight of the new arrivals before rushing toward them as if they had seen their saviors. "Unlin, I beg of you, please avenge our teachers and classmates," a male student with a severed arm pleaded with tears in his eyes. "If it weren't for Teacher Yen Zhe burning his own life force to stall Morton, all of us would have died here before reinforcements from the executive department arrived," a female student said as she wiped away her tears. Enlin and Su Xiaolan remained silent as they made their way toward the shriveled male before extending deep bows toward him. There was actually no need to say anything. They were part of Xiaoxian United University anyway, and now that their teachers and students had died before their very eyes, he was definitely going to avenge them. The Celestial Court's executive department had also noticed Enlin and the others, and they were led by a beautiful woman in a red dress. "Enlin," a crisp voice called out. Enlin raised his head to discover that this was a rather familiar face. He had seen her before upon entering the ancient Tai Chu realm. He extended a polite greeting. "Yang Ruoling, are you responsible for this?" The woman in red shook her head. "No, Department Head Golden Tiger is responsible for Morton's death. I was only sent here to take care of the aftermath." "Department Head Golden Tiger and Deputy Minister Chen, you have already set up a large-scale warning spell formation in Lingguang City, which can encompass half of the Gem State's border. However, the downside is that this spell formation is constantly expending energy, so it's not a long-term solution." Yang Ruoling's expression was filled with concern as she spoke. Enlin nodded upon hearing this. This wasn't to say that there were too few people in the executive department, it was just that there was a limit to what they could do in the face of such a powerful being. After all, Return to Void stage mighty figures were among the most powerful beings on the entire continent, and they could use the power of space to come and go as they pleased. The Gem State was a massive place, so there was no guarantee that they would be able to send reinforcements immediately if they were to attack a city. All the mighty figures of the executive department could do now was expand the warning spell formation in order to be able to send reinforcements as soon as possible in the event of a Blood Tribe attack. Huangquan City. On the city wall that had been enhanced by a spell formation, an ordinary-looking figure suddenly appeared. It was a youth who didn't look very old. He was dressed in a brownish-yellow linen robe. He wasn't tall, and there was a hint of vicissitudes in his delicate features. The hemp-clothed youth shuttled between the soldiers and the students, but no one noticed his presence. Even the Heaven's Eye left behind by Emperor Tian Huang automatically ignored his existence. "Class President, do you think Enlin will be able to avenge his classmates and teachers?" Su Qianyun looked worried. "That's hard to say. If Morton is arrogant, then he'll definitely be screwed, but from the information we've received so far, it seems like Morton isn't that type of person. We have to work hard to become stronger as well. Only then can we be like Enlin and have the power to defend the glory of the Celestial Court." Xianyuan Qing sighed, then his gaze became firm. "Yes, I have to work hard to become stronger. Setting aside Enlin's footsteps, I have to catch up to classmate Xiaolan first." Su Qianyun clenched her little fists as she cheered herself on in a mellow voice. A faint smile appeared on Xianyuan Cheng's face. He had already decided that he was going to go into seclusion at the sect during this holiday. He wasn't going to school until he broke through to the soul formation stage. As it turned out, having someone who could catch up to lead the way was a great way to motivate prodigies. Xianyuan Qing and Su Qianyun's aptitude was actually about the same as Wang Xuanzhan's, but their rate of growth and progression was slightly faster than Wang Xuanzhan's. Perhaps part of the credit for this could be attributed to the motivation that Enlin and Su Xiaolan had given them. The hemp-clothed youth listened for a while before nodding. "Enlin went to Tsanglan City? That's very close, so it's on the way." The hemp-clothed youth continued onward, and his body abruptly disappeared from this world. Songlan City. Anlin and Su Xiaolan were discussing the specific plan of attack with Yang Ruoling. At this moment, a certain Dao talisman on Yang Ruoling's body suddenly burst into flames. Her expression shifted as she yelled in a panicked voice, "Crap, Qinyu City is under attack by the Blood Tribe. Little Xiao, let's go." And Lin's expression became serious as he spoke. "Wait, take me with you." Yang Ruoling gritted her teeth, and there was an undisguised hatred on her beautiful face. "I have a very good friend who also died in the last battle. I want to participate in the battle as well. I want to do my part in the crusade against Morton." Anlin looked at Yang Ruoling and didn't say anything as he nodded lightly. Xiao Zhe tore through space, and a black light enshrouded everyone as they traveled through space together. Within Qinyu City, the sound of spell techniques exploding shook heaven and earth. Countless crimson lights bombarded the city walls, breaking through the protective array. A huge hole was blasted open in the towering city walls. Tens of thousands of Blood Tribe soldiers charged toward the city wall, led by 10 Soul Formation stage Blood Tribe mighty figures, and they were able to unleash extremely fearsome attacks with ease. Qinyu City's defenses were quickly broken by the Blood Tribe army, and a ferocious battle instantly ensued. Including the homeroom teacher of the 34th class, there were only 3 human Soul Formation stage powerful beings. In the face of the 10 Soul Formation stage Blood Tribe mighty figures, they were soon on the losing end. "Hold on, everyone. Reinforcements from the Celestial Court will be here soon," a spirit-nurturing stage general yelled. However, a few seconds later, a Blood Tribe mighty figure pounced on him like a bat, snapped his neck, and sucked all of his blood dry. All of the soldiers and students did not back down upon seeing this. Instead, they fought with their lives on the line. They unleashed one powerful spell technique after another, and some of them were even willing to trade lives for lives. They knew that they wouldn't be able to hold on until reinforcements arrived, so they might as well take this opportunity to kill as many Blood Tribe mighty figures as they could. A man with crimson scales all over his body standing atop a crimson falcon over 100 feet in length roared with laughter. "Kill with all your might. Let's kill for another 3 minutes. When we're full, we'll retreat. Are you sure you can hold on for 3 more minutes?" A clear voice suddenly sounded from behind the man. A chill ran down the man's spine, and he immediately turned around before blasting scorching flames from his mouth. The flames were like crimson ink as they swept through heaven and earth, twisting the air in their wake and imbuing them with extremely fearsome corrosive power. However, an even more terrifying white flame instantly broke through the earth, shattering blood-colored flames. The crimson flames seemed to have encountered an extremely fearsome natural predator, and all of them fled for their lives as if they were submitting to the white flame. The Blood Tribe Soul Formation stage man's pupils abruptly contracted as he was greeted by a fearsome slash of flames that was powerful enough to incinerate all things in this world, as well as a peerless figure enshrouded in flames. In the next instant, the white slash of flames sliced the Soul Formation stage powerful figure in half before incinerating him to ashes. The Soul Formation stage Blood Tribe mighty figure had been insta-killed by Su Xiaolan. At the same time, Anlin, Xiao Zhe, Tina, Yang Ruoling, Xiao Chou, and Dabai all joined the battle. The most powerful reinforcements from the Celestial Court had arrived. Chapter 684. 3 Soul Formation stage Blood Tribe cultivators were ganging up on a teacher from the Celestial Court. The teacher was gradually unable to hold on and was about to use a mystic technique to forcefully increase his cultivation base at the expense of the power of his bloodline. However, right at this moment, his expression faltered and he stopped his train of thought. A Blood Tribe cultivator wielding a black refined copper shield and a spirit blood saber was in the middle of a massacre. He wanted to suck the blood of the teacher in front of him within 3 minutes, but he suddenly felt a scorching sensation from behind him. His divine sense was extremely powerful, and his reaction was even more decisive. He slashed his saber behind him, and a peerlessly domineering saber projection instantly broke through the surging black flames. The clown rushed toward him, and swung his silver staff toward the head of the blood tribe cultivator with unimaginable force. There was no light circulating around this attack, and it was as if it were an ordinary attack from a normal cultivator. However, the blood tribe cultivator sensed an extremely fearsome power from this attack, and he immediately gave up on using his saber to fight the attack head-on. Instead, he summoned his shield. "Eat this old ugly staff." Bam! The silver staff collided with the black refined copper shield, and an energy shockwave instantly swept out for over a kilometer. An extremely powerful force crashed down with the force of Mount Tai, and the extremely sturdy black crystal copper spirit tool cracked and shattered. The Soul Formation Stage Blood Tribe Cultivator was also blasted to the ground by the terrifying force, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. The clown stepped on clouds and mist, and continued to chase after the teacher. The other two Blood Tribe cultivators were given a fright by this turn of events, and they no longer pursued the teacher. Instead, they turned their attention elsewhere. Right at this moment, darkness suddenly descended. Everything happened so abruptly, as if the sky had suddenly darkened, and all of their senses had been blocked. When light returned, they saw a handsome man with a smile on his face. He was holding a black sword with streams of wind revolving around it in his hand. "You are," one of the Blood Tribe cultivator's eyes widened, and he only managed to finish his sentence when he felt an extremely terrifying pain shooting through his body. Every part of his body felt like it was being torn apart, and his consciousness was suddenly shattered. The other Blood Tribe cultivator screamed in shock and horror. He was just about to escape when his body was also instantly sliced into pieces, and his life force was instantly severed. The two Soul Formation Stage cultivators were sliced into thousands of pieces right in front of the man with the black sword, and there was no possibility of them ever recovering. "Sigh, what a weakling!" Unlin shook his head helplessly. He had originally wanted to use his blood to increase the lethality of his attacks, but then he suddenly realized that with his current strength, there didn't seem to be any need for him to use this kind of cheat on a Blood Tribe cultivator of the Soul Formation stage. If they really wanted to kill him, they could just chop him down. Are these weaklings worthy of Bleeding Sword Immortal Unlin? Only Blood Tribe mighty figures of the Return to Void stage were worthy of Lord Medicine's trump cards. "Unlin, it's you!" the teacher exclaimed in surprise. "Hello, teacher." Unlin smiled and nodded. "Let's go help the others first." "Alright." That teacher felt reassured and followed Unlin to kill their way to other places. At this time, many people had already seen Unlin's team coming to the rescue. At this moment, they were like the light that broke through the darkness, bringing endless hope to everyone. "Great! Godin is here. We must hold on. With classmate Unlin and the others coming to our rescue, we can definitely win this battle." "What? I thought I was going to die here. Unlin, I love you." "That's great. Reinforcements from the Celestial Court are here. Look at how excited these students are. These reinforcements must be very powerful." Charge, everyone, regardless of whether it was the students or the soldiers, became extremely excited and charged toward the Blood Tribe cultivators around them with all their might. The golden bracelet on Yang Ruoling's wrist turned into two sharp flying wheels that swam through the Blood Race army. Golden light whistled through the air, slicing large swaths of Blood Race soldiers in half. Dabai stuck out his tongue and waved his four claws through the air. As he flew, he slashed a series of terrifying blades through the air, tearing the Blood Tribe cultivators on the ground into shreds as if he were plowing a field. Lightning clouds suddenly enshrouded an area with a radius of close to 10 kilometers in the sky. It wasn't that someone was transcending a tribulation. Instead, it was that Xiao Zhe had set up a lightning cloud formation to prevent the Blood Tribe cultivators from escaping. Enlin had said that he was going to kill every single one of these blood tribe cultivators. Boundless bolts of lightning fell to the ground, sealing off all of the blood tribe cultivators' paths of retreat. At the same time, bolts of terrifying lightning descended like divine punishment. Regardless of whether it was the blood tribe cultivators of the Tao body stage or the spirit nurturing stage, they were all reduced to ashes with no chance of survival. And there were over 10,000 bolts of such lightning here. Tina stepped into the air with her pristine, white feet, and she made a peculiar hand seal with her hands. Several thousand white arrows of light pierced through the air with unerring accuracy, imbuing all of the blood tribe cultivators with a terrifying power of purity, causing their bodies to stiffen before silently perishing. This was the fearsome power of Return to Void stage mighty figures. Their simple spell techniques had the power to destroy an entire army with ease. The battle quickly became one-sided. Some of the blood tribe cultivators instantly pissed themselves upon seeing two Return to Void stage mighty figures joining the battle, and they immediately began to retreat. However, there was no way they could escape from Xiao Zhe's lightning prison. A black dragon over 10,000 feet in length swam through the surging lightning clouds like a god descending divine punishment, reducing all of the fleeing blood tribe cultivators to dust with its lightning bolt. In less than 3 minutes, tens of thousands of blood tribe cultivators had been completely wiped out. Everyone erupted into raucous cheers at the sight of the blood tribe cultivators being wiped out, and some of them were even shedding tears of excitement upon escaping death. Xiao Zhe and Tina made their way over to Enlin's side, and countless pairs of scorching eyes stared at them. "Have you discovered any Return to Void stage mighty figures?" Enlin asked. Xiao Zhe and Tina looked at each other before shaking their heads with disappointment in their eyes. Enlin heaved a forlorn sigh upon seeing this. They hadn't discovered any traces of Morton, so they had alerted the enemy. 2 more spatial rifts appeared in the air above Qinyu City, from which over 100 powerful figures began to emerge. They were none other than Jin Hu and Chen Yu, and they had come to their rescue. However, they were still a little dumbstruck at the sight of the tens of thousands of blood tribe cultivators that had been slain. "Holy F***CK, which mighty figure is it? It's only been a few minutes, right? How did they all die?" An executive department member's eyes widened with incredulity. However, they immediately came to a realization upon seeing the man at the center of the crowd. In particular, Jin Hu and Chen Yu heaved sighs of relief upon seeing Enlin. "Enlin sure is reliable." Jin Hu chuckled. "That's right. We're quite far away from this city. If it weren't for Enlin, this city would probably be in a completely different state." Chen Yu looked at the man on the city wall with a scorching gaze and an expression of admiration. "Let's go and meet the hero of the Celestial Court. Let's go together." The executive department members of the Celestial Court began to fly toward Enlin. It was also at this moment that a black figure slowly appeared in the distance. He wore a red robe, and his aura was extremely subdued, making it impossible for anyone to detect his presence with their divine sense. The red-robed man chuckled coldly as he looked at the city in the distance. Hee, what a pleasant surprise! Who would have thought that the people from the Celestial Court in Huangquan City would walk out of Emperor Tian Huang's perimeter? How foolish! This way, I can report this matter to Emperor Yi Deng and use this opportunity to kill these enemies. Just when the red-robed man thought that he had secured the victory, a young man in linen robes made his way toward him without him noticing before appraising him with a pair of cold eyes. Chapter 685. The red-robed man was none other than the Return to Void intermediate stage blood tribe mighty figure, Morton. Morton's Tao of Shadow Slaughter had reached an unfathomable level, and even Xiao Zhe's divine sense was unable to detect his presence. Compared to the information he had obtained, the destruction of this blood tribe army was nothing to be concerned about. All he had to do now was report this discovery to Emperor Yi Deng, and not only would Emperor Yi Deng send powerful reinforcements, He might even be able to avenge the destruction of Huang Quan City. Just you wait, your blood will be mine sooner or later. Morton chuckled coldly as he looked at the gargantuan city in the distance before turning to leave. However, at this moment, he caught sight of a figure appearing beside him out of the corner of his eye. This discovery was so abrupt, and it gave him a massive fright. "Who are you?" Morton instantly appeared over 100 meters away as he stared at the figure with a cautious expression. He wasn't an idiot. He knew that a man who could appear beside him without any warning was definitely not an ordinary man. It was exactly because of this that he was already contemplating running away. A faint smile appeared on the youth's face as he spoke in a cold, clear voice. "Were you the one behind the destruction of Tsanglan City?" "I didn't do it," Morton denied with an expression of sincerity as cold sweat began to appear on his palms. "I've already received my answer from your words." The youth made his way toward Morton with a cold expression on his face, and the space around him gradually congealed. "Do you know that there is a price to pay for killing the teachers and students of the Celestial Court? It would have been fine if I hadn't encountered them, but now that I've encountered them, I can't just stand by and do nothing." Morton's heart began to race. He felt like an extremely terrifying primordial beast was slowly approaching him before baring its sharp fangs toward him. He couldn't afford to mess with this person. He had to run. He immediately tore open a spatial rift with his hands, only to find that the space around him had already been sealed. What a terrifying sealing power! He was a return to void intermediate stage mighty figure. Even a return to void final stage mighty figure wouldn't be able to seal this space without anyone noticing. Morton immediately unleashed his shadow evasion technique with a decisive expression. Crack! His body had been sealed by a mysterious power, and he was completely immobilized. Who are you?" Morton stared at the handsome young man who was making his way toward him with a horrified expression. Yes, he was truly afraid. How could he not be afraid of an existence that could completely seal off his body? Is it useful for a dead person to ask these questions? The young man made his way over to Morton, and he heaved a faint sigh at the sight of Morton's trembling form. "Sigh, I really didn't want to waste my power, but who told you to jump around like this?" The space around them fell silent, and Morton's body stiffened like a statue. His entire body was now imprisoned, and he couldn't even speak. However, he was roaring in his heart, "I'm innocent." He didn't jump, he was just hiding in the dark. The young man extended a finger toward him, and just as Morton was perplexed, the voice sounded again. "I'll try my best to control my strength. Finger of the heavenly Tao, 1/10,000th of my strength." Heaven and earth instantly fell silent as an indescribable sense of horror engulfed Morton's entire body. The finger seemed to be imbued with the might of the heavenly Tao, and it grew larger and larger in his eyes. Morton's eyes widened with shock and horror, and even his crotch was a little wet. It couldn't be. It was just a finger. How could the power of a finger be so terrifying? This had to be an illusion. It had to be some kind of trick. He roared with madness in his heart, as if he wanted to use this to counteract the overwhelming horror, but the horror engulfed his entire body, and it only grew stronger and stronger. Heaven and earth began to crumble, and the sun, moon, and stars began to spin in reverse. Amidst a vast expanse of chaos, only the finger remained. The young man's finger had already fallen, and in that instant, heaven and earth turned golden within Qinyu City, and Lin was discussing how to deal with Morton with the members of the Celestial Court Executive Department. Many soldiers and students were cleaning up the bodies on the battlefield, and all of a sudden, heaven and earth were illuminated by a vast expanse of golden light. Everyone, including Xiaoza and Tina, turned toward the direction directly in front of Qinyu City with astonishment on their faces. That was the source of the golden light, and it was imbued with the paramount might of heaven and earth, striking everyone with the urge to submit to it. Boom! A streak of golden light sliced the earth in half before extending into infinity and beyond. Everyone stared blankly at the streak of golden light that threatened to slice the earth in half, and they were at a complete loss for words. The golden light dissipated, and an inky black fissure appeared on the ground, as if it were a scar on the ground. Big brother, and why do I feel like I've seen this power before? Woof. Debai's eyes widened in shock. And Lin took a deep breath. It's not just familiar, this is the King finger of the heavens. This was a familiar power that he had used before, and it had been engraved into his mind a long time ago. How could he forget it? The system's description of this spell technique was also extremely bad *SS. Upon mastery, it could annihilate all things, and upon mastery, it could pierce through space, pierce through time, and pulverize the great Tao. Thinking back to when he unleashed this finger technique, Wang Xuanzhan was scared *. Not only that, but he himself also exploded on the spot. The system had once said that he didn't have the authority to use the finger of the heavenly Tao, and it was exactly because of this that he wouldn't attempt to use this suicidal spell technique unless he was in a desperate situation. But now, someone was using this technique right in front of him. How could he not be shocked? Let's go and have a look. And Lin immediately made up his mind. They were just about to head toward the source of the golden light, to see who had unleashed it when a young man in a brownish-yellow linen robe suddenly appeared before Lin with a smile on his face. Long time no see, junior brother Lin. Everyone was just about to set off, but they were all rooted to the spot as they stared blankly at the young man who had suddenly appeared before them. This is Morton's head. Jean who exclaimed upon seeing the charred head in the young man's hand. Oh, I heard this blood tribe member slaughtered everyone in Songlan City, as well as the teachers and students of our school, so I killed him. The young man spoke nonchalantly before placing the head onto the ground. His head is quite hard. His body has been reduced to dust, but his head is still intact. Everyone, Senior brother Chen, why are you here? Lin took a deep breath before asking. That's right, this young man was none other than Chen, who had been cultivating in the celestial court. He was also the source of Lin's finger of the heavenly Tao. Senior brother? Gasp! All of the Celestial Court Enforcement Department members drew a sharp intake of breath upon hearing this. Are all the students from our school this terrifying? Chen Yu was no longer able to maintain his composure. Su Xiaolan and all of the other students were also in disbelief. They had all seen Chen during the free-for-all battle, and Su Xiaolan had even attacked Chen. However, this student who had been criticized by countless people as a coward had instantly slain a return-to-void intermediate stage blood tribe mighty figure right before their very eyes. The power of the young man before them had completely changed their outlook on cultivation. Even Lin was in complete awe. He had thought that he was a hack, but who would have thought that Chen was even more of a hack than him? Not only had Chen detected Morton's presence in the shadows, but he had also slain him with a single finger. From the way he spoke, it was as if this was as easy as eating and drinking. What a freak! A smile appeared on Chen's face upon hearing Lin's question. Why am I here? I'm here to find you. Chapter 686. Lin was quite surprised to hear that Chen had taken the initiative to seek him out. He faltered slightly before asking, Why are you looking for me? Chen looked around with a clear and piercing gaze before rising into the air. Let's go somewhere else and have a good chat. Everyone was astonished to hear this. The two of them wanted to have a private chat? Some of them became curious, and there were even some students who were looking at the two of them with dubious expressions. Lin hesitated momentarily before waving goodbye to Su Xiaolan and his beast pet. I'll be right back. A faint smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. If he teaches you any explosive spell techniques, you better not learn them. Chen's lips twitched imperceptibly upon hearing this. Su Xiaolan's words were exactly what Lin was thinking. and Lin gave her an okay hand gesture before flying off with Chen Chen. Thus, the two of them strolled through the clouds. And Lin didn't feel very safe, so he brought out his black brick. He stood on the black brick and instantly felt a lot more at ease. He thought for a moment before bringing out a table and 2 small stools from his storage ring, as well as a dozen or so spirit fruit. Rich energy fluctuations instantly proliferated throughout the entire space. Come on, senior student Chen Chen, let's talk while we eat. Have as many spirit fruits as you want, I've got more here. And Lin waved at Chen Chen with a generous expression. The aura of a tycoon in the cultivation world was on full display. After all, Chen Chen had saved him once, so he definitely wanted to make their meeting as pleasant as possible. Chen Chen looked speechlessly at the black brick beside him, as well as the table and spirit fruits on it. After a few seconds of hesitation, he still sat down across from Lin. Lin looked at the senior student in front of him carefully. His appearance hadn't changed, and he still looked like a young man. From the aura fluctuations, he had dropped from the 8th stage Tao body to the 7th stage Tao body. He had even dropped 1 stage. However, only an idiot would look at this cultivation base. It was quite clear that this cultivation base was just for show. As for his attire, he was wearing a brownish-yellow hemp robe, which was so ordinary that it looked like he was in dire straits. Lin pondered for a moment before he asked with a concerned expression, "Senior, have you been doing well these years? Why did he have to wear hemp clothes? Don't you have any clothes? I have a lot of nice clothes here. There are also a lot of fashion brands in the mortal world. Do you want to pick 1 or 2? Don't worry, I'm not short of money. It's free." Chen Chen's little face twitched slightly, then he said softly, "Clothes are just worldly possessions, Anlin Jr. brother, don't worry about it. Let's get down to business." And Lin fell into deep thought. In the past, in some stories, the main characters were used to dressing poorly and hiding their cultivation. This way, they would be looked down upon by others. Then, the main character would jump out to show off and slap people in the face. Now that he thought about it, Chen Chen seemed to be taking this path. Could it be that Chen Chen was going to be the protagonist? Hiss! And Lin sucked in a breath of cold air, then looked at Chen Chen with deep respect. It turned out that he was the man who was going to be the main character. He had to grab onto Chen Chen's thigh as soon as possible. In the future, don't forget to bring your little brother along when you have to flex and slap people in the face. Chen Chen looked at Lin, whose eyes had suddenly become fanatical, and asked with a strange expression, "Anlin Jr. brother, what are you thinking about?" Lin recovered from his reverie and looked at Chen Chen with a fawning expression. "Senior brother, it's nothing. Come on, eat your fruit. Also, can we use voice transmission talismans to exchange contact details?" Lin felt that he had to suck up to Chen Chen as soon as possible. This was the best opportunity. Chen Chen smiled faintly. "I'm sorry, I don't have a voice transmission talisman." Lin was dazed. "Then do you have any contact details?" Chen Chen spread his hands open. "I have nothing. I don't have any external possessions. The only thing I have is myself. Of course, if my heart is big enough, I can also have the entire world." Hiss, as expected of a big boss. Even his way of speaking was so profound and unique. Lin thought about this in his mind and couldn't help but ask, "What do you mean you don't have any external possessions? Your linen clothes are also external possessions." "That doesn't count," Chen Chen replied in a faint voice. "Then what about your shoes?" Lin asked again. Chen Chen took a deep breath. "Let's get down to business." "Yes, senior brother," Lin replied obediently. Chen Chen stroked his chin and thought for a moment before saying, "Actually, I've been paying attention to you. I have a special feeling for you." Thump. Lin was just about to pick up a spirit fruit and eat it as they chatted, but Chen Chen's first sentence made his hand tremble and dropped the spirit fruit onto the table. You. Senior brother, I like Xiaolan." Lin stuttered as waves of shock surged through his heart. F***ck. This kind of confession, coming from the mouth of a handsome young man, was really too frightening. He was a decent person. He tactfully refused on the spot. Chen Chen's expression faltered. Why are you saying this? Are these two related? I don't care. Of course they're related, I care. I only like Xiaolan, I'm a straight man. Lin spoke with a serious expression. Senior brother, you have to cut off these kinds of feelings if you can. Forcing it won't bring you any good results. Chen Chen was confused. What was Lin talking about? Were they really talking about the same thing? I think there might be some misunderstanding between us, or should I say, a generation gap. Chen Chen said patiently. I don't care whether you like Su Xiaolan or not, but I do have a special feeling for you. That's true. Lin, do you know when you used the finger of the heavenly Tao during the free-for-all battle, not only was I not surprised in the slightest, I even thought it was natural. You give me a very special feeling, as if there's an important connection between the two of us. Chen Chen looked at Lin with a serious expression. I don't know what opportunity you have, nor do I know what your true identity is, but I feel like you're indispensable to my plan. Lin heaved a sigh of relief as an awkward expression appeared on his face. So this was what Chen Chen was talking about. He had misunderstood, so what's your plan? Lin calmed himself down before asking. If this were Lin, he would have slapped Chen Chen across the face without hesitation. However, now that he had come into contact with cultivation, he had seen all kinds of strange things. Thus, Lin was starting to believe this type of quack's attempt to worm his way into a closer relationship with them. A mysterious smile appeared on Chen Chen's face. Do you want to learn more about the heaven-crushing sect? What? Lin's eyes widened with confusion. I'm saying that I've established a heaven-crushing sect here. Are you interested? Chen Chen asked with an expectant expression. Lin, an enigmatic silence enshrouded the two of them. Could it be that all men who wanted to be main characters had to defy the heavens and crush the heavens in order to be considered complete? It had to be said that this fit Chen Chen's persona perfectly. Senior student, I feel like my beast pet, Shuizhantian, might be interested in your sect. Lin spoke expressionlessly. Chen Chen pointed at Lin. Junior student, I only need you. Lin. Chapter 687. Why are you inviting me to join such a stupid sect? Lin roared with rage in his heart, but he maintained a polite smile on his face. Chen Chen spoke with a serious expression. Anlin Junior brother, the fact that you're able to use the finger of the heavenly Tao proves that you have an affinity with our heaven-crushing sect. This is because the finger of the heavenly Tao is the heaven-crushing technique of our heaven-crushing sect. Normal cultivators wouldn't be able to reach that level even if they cultivated for hundreds or thousands of years, let alone unleash the heaven-crushing technique. Lin's heart jolted slightly upon hearing the heaven-crushing technique. When he was observing the finger of the heavenly Tao, the system had told him that the heavenly Tao was flawed. The heaven-crushing sect and the heaven-mending sect were both trying to prove their Tao, and the finger of the heavenly Tao was the heaven-crushing technique. So the heaven-crushing sect wasn't some stupid sect, but a sect of the heaven-crushing sect? In that case, he couldn't ignore Chen Chen's words anymore. Senior disciple, what is this heaven-crushing sect you speak of? Lin asked. A joyful expression appeared on Chen Chen's face upon seeing that Lin was finally interested. The heavenly Tao is flawed. If we can't find a way out, this world will collapse. Our heaven-crushing sect's mission is to destroy the heavenly Tao and become the new heavenly Tao to rule over all of the realms. Of course, you'll only know the specifics of our plan after you join our sect and become one of us. Lin was completely astonished upon hearing Chen Chen's description. Holy F***ck, is he really going to F***ck the heavens? Not only was he going to F***ck the heavens, but he was going to replace them and become the new heavens? This was way too terrifying. This was something that a main character should do, and he wanted Lin to join them? What a joke. Lin clasped his hands together in a salute. Sorry to disturb you. Chen blinked in confusion. What? I want steady happiness. Farewell. Lin spoke with a serious expression. Chen wasn't being serious about King the heavens, but Lin could tell that he was serious. This was King terrifying. What kind of hatred did the heavens have against him? Why did he have to do this? Not to mention how arduous and terrifying that path was. Just the backlash from the heavenly Tao alone was something he couldn't bear. Lin didn't have any big dreams. He just wanted to spend the rest of his life peacefully with Su Xiaolan, his family, and his friends. He didn't even want to pursue immortality. Living for 10,000 years or even 100 million years would be enough. If one lived for too long, they might get bored. It was just such an ordinary dream. Why do you insist on participating in Heaven-Crushing's great cause? What were they after? The responsibility of saving the world should be left to the protagonist of this world, Senior Chen. At the thought of this, Lin stood up and prepared to leave. Hey, Anlin Jr. brother, don't be rash. Think about it first. When Chen saw this, he stood up as well. There was a hint of nervousness on his handsome face. You can use the finger of the Tao of Heaven. Once you enter the sect, I can make you the third disciple. Lin's face convulsed. Don't even think about it. I won't do it even if I have to. His instincts told him that he would be in a lot of trouble if he got involved in this matter. Hence, Lin chose to run away. Senior brother, if there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave. Lin waved a hand at Chen before departing. Chen raised a hand and was just about to urge Lin to stay, but he thought about it for a moment before sighing and allowing Lin to leave. So be it. It's already good enough that you've only heard of this existence. Perhaps we'll be fated to work together in the future. The doors of the Heaven-Crushing sect will always be open to you, Chen said in a soft voice. His voice traveled into Lin's ears, but Lin didn't reply. Instead, he flew away atop his black brick. Chen's body slowly disappeared as he watched Lin's departing figure. Lin flew back to Qinyu City atop his brick, and everyone gathered around to welcome him. Where's fellow Taoist Chen? Department head Golden Tiger asked curiously. He has other things to do, so he left, Lin explained. However, in his heart, he thought to himself, Senior brother Chen is busy with how to crush the heavens, so don't disturb him. Oh! A hint of disappointment flashed past Chen Yu's handsome face. We were planning to hold a celebratory feast tonight. After all, we've wiped out the entire blood tribe and killed the leader of the culprits, Morton. That's all right. Even if he didn't leave, he wouldn't be attending the celebratory feast. Lin waved his hand. Why not? Chen Yu was perplexed. I just placed a dozen or so spirit fruits on the table, but he didn't eat any of them. Hence, I have enough reason to deduce that Chen is a transcendent celestial maiden. Lin explained with a serious expression. Golden Tiger, Chen Yu. That night, the 10 streets of Qinyu City were filled with banquets, creating an extremely lively and bustling atmosphere. All of the citizens and soldiers in the city were celebrating the annihilation of the Blood Tribe. Most of the citizens in the border city were tough and courageous, and it was exactly because of this that the city was even livelier. People sang and danced to their heart's content to express their joy. Lin and Su Xiaolan held hands as they strolled down the bustling street. Su Xiaolan was handsome, while Su Xiaolan was a stunning beauty, and they attracted the attention of countless passers-by, creating an enviable couple. Fireworks blossomed with dazzling colors in the sky. Kongming lanterns, which were used to pray for wishes and to commemorate the fallen soldiers, slowly flew into the dark night sky, adding a bit of romantic color to the night. Handsome was, of course, Lin's humble way of saying it. He was a peerless sword immortal who had captured the hearts of many young girls, and this was evident from the presents he received along the way. Big Brother and Lin, these flowers are for you. A lively little girl stuffed a bouquet of tulips into Lin's hand. Thank you, adorable little sister. And Lin accepted the bouquet of flowers and stroked the little girl's head with a joyful expression. Tulips represented holiness, happiness, and victory, so they were quite suitable for such an occasion. Big Brother and Lin, this is a painting that I drew for you. I hope that one day I can be as outstanding as you and protect my city. A dark-skinned little boy with exceptionally bright eyes gifted a painting to Lin. And Lin immediately gave a thumbs up at the sight of the handsome man in the painting. Nice painting. You vividly portrayed my graceful bearing as a sword immortal. This was not flattery, but praise that came from the bottom of his heart. This little boy's painting skills were truly heaven-defying. He was at least 10 times, no, 100 times better than him. Su Xiaolan poked her head over and appraised the man in the painting. It's not very good. The man in the painting is twice as handsome as you are. It's almost as if a beautiful picture has been created. Oi, is it really a good idea to criticize me in front of a little child? Lin's expression darkened. All right, big sister Xiaolan. I'll definitely paint with facts next time. The little boy chuckled as he ran away. Lin and Su Xiaolan strolled through the night market together. The lights were dazzling and vibrant, and as fish and dragons danced about, clear and melodious singing drifted out from the pavilions. The bustling atmosphere was infectious to the two of them. Lin was very glad that he had chosen to leave Huangquan City and join the crusade against Morton. Otherwise, he most likely wouldn't have been able to witness such a joyous scene. Here, Xiaolan, this crystal sugar moon gourd is for you. Lin handed the famous snack that he had just obtained to the woman beside him. This crystal moon gourd had a smooth and crisp texture, and its entire body glowed with a bright white light, as if it were the moon in the sky. It was extremely delicious. Su Xiaolan accepted the crystal sugar bright moon gourd and opened her mouth slightly to take a bite. A sweet and refreshing flavor filled the tip of her tongue, and her eyes narrowed slightly. She smiled, and her eyes curved into crescent moons as she chewed. She looked a little adorable as she chewed. Fireworks exploded in the night sky. The dazzling light shone on her face, making her appear even more vibrant and alluring. It's really delicious. Lin, have a bite as well. Su Xiaolan handed the crystal moon gourd to Lin's mouth with a dainty smile on her face. Lin took the opportunity to take a bite and chew on it. The texture was indeed amazing. This was given to him by Xiaolan, and the flavor enhancement was doubled. In short, it was extremely delicious. An elated smile appeared on Lin's face. Perhaps this was the kind of stable happiness that he wanted. Along the way, Lin held on to Su Xiaolan's hand, unwilling to let go. Chapter 688. Outside Songlan City, Morton's severed head was hung in the air as a tribute to the dead souls in the city. The dozen or so students who had survived were taken away by members of the executive department. After seeing Morton's severed head, the knot in their hearts was resolved. Some of them had tears streaming down their faces, while others fell completely unconscious. In reality, it was quite normal for people to sacrifice themselves in the face of the Blood Tribe or Snow Maidens. This was the reality of the cultivation world. There was no such thing as eternal peace and bliss. There were battles of all sizes everywhere. With their enemies vanquished, Lin, Su Xiaolan, Tina, Dabai, and Xiao Chou hurried back to Huangquan City. At this moment, at the center of the dark marshlands, within the paramount palace of the Blood Tribe, the divine palace of life, Morton's jade badge of life shattered into dust with a loud crack. Boom! A crimson pillar of blood broke through the roof of the divine palace and shot straight into the heavens. An extremely enraged voice erupted throughout the earth. Who dared to kill one of my most trusted subordinates? I'm going to turn their entire family into blood ghosts and turn their sect into a blood prison. I'm going to torture everyone's souls for 1,000,000 years. All of the tool refinement masters stared blankly at the crimson pillar rising into the sky, and they felt like throwing up mouthfuls of blood. The roof of the divine palace had only been repaired a few days ago, but it had exploded again. Why was this emperor so easily enraged? The tool refinement masters wanted to cry, but they didn't dare to say anything. Morton was a very renowned mighty figure in the blood tribe. He was extremely proficient in the Tao of assassination, and he was known as the most difficult to kill return to void stage mighty figure in the blood tribe. However, such a mighty figure had been killed without even being able to send out a distress signal. How could Emperor Yi Deng not be shocked and enraged? If it weren't for the fact that Tao integration stage mighty figures were naturally able to sense one another, he would have thought that a Tao integration stage mighty figure had interfered. Each and every return to void stage mighty figure was one of the most powerful beings in the blood tribe, but 5 of them had fallen in the past dozen or so days. This was a massive blow to the blood tribe. It was an even bigger blow to Emperor Yi Deng, as those 5 return to void stage mighty figures, including his son, were all his most trusted subordinates. Fortunately, the blood race had produced 3 saints this time. If the Holy Son developed well, he might be able to lead the blood race toward a new era of glory. This was also the reason why the blood race bigwigs weren't so panicked and heartbroken. Of course, there was one exception, and that was Emperor Yi Deng. Yi Deng counted on his fingers. There were still 4 return-to-void stage lackeys who could serve him. He spat out another mouthful of old blood and yelled in anger, "Celestial Court, you've gone too far." Even though the blood tribe was in turmoil, Unlin and the others passed through the next few days in peace and quiet. When it was time for the final exam, everyone set off to return to campus. Then, it was time for the award ceremony for the final exam. Unlin's class had received commendations from the whole school for their frightening achievements. And this was under the premise that the Celestial Court had covered up Leiden's death. If that incident were to be exposed, then it wouldn't just be a simple award ceremony. Instead, it would cause a massive stir throughout the entire kingdom of the 9 states. However, in order to prevent Unlin from attracting too much hatred, this matter was concealed very well. Only the 5 emperors of the Celestial Court, Lin Junjun, the homeroom teacher, and a few of Unlin's closest friends knew about this matter. During the award ceremony, the school gave out many pills, materials, and spirit stones to those who had performed meritorious deeds. These were only a drop in the bucket compared to Unlin's vast fortune. However, Vice Principal Yuhua had secretly given Unlin 3 4th-grade immortal pill coupons and 1 3rd-grade immortal pill coupon, which was quite generous. Those were most likely the rewards that Unlin had received for doing things that no one knew about. During this award ceremony, aside from Unlin's outstanding performance, Lu Qianhuan's performance was also very dazzling. During a crucial battle against the Snow Maidens, she had single-handedly cut off a logistics team of 3,000 people and slain 3 Soul Formation stage Snow Maiden generals. She chased after the 3,000 Snow Maidens for several hundred kilometers until a certain Holy Palace leader was alerted, and only then did she return on her sword. The executive department of the Celestial Court in the Holy Glacial Lands had already extended an invitation to her. As long as she worked there, she would receive the treatment of a general. Many of the important departments of the Celestial Court had also opened their doors to her. However, she still hadn't decided where she wanted to go. A light breeze blew past on a small path in the Celestial Court, and withered yellow leaves fell from the sky. The path was covered in a yellow carpet of fallen leaves. A pretty girl in a pink and blue sailor suit was humming a song as she stepped lightly on the yellow carpet, creating a slight rustling sound. Her pink hair had grown a little long, and it was tied into a ponytail. As she walked, her ponytail also swayed in the wind. She was full of energy. Unlin, What do you think I should choose? Her voice was crisp and pleasing to the ear. Her thin brows were furrowed, and there was a hint of melancholy on her face. She looked very much like a young girl who was going through puberty. A handsome man in a white robe walked beside the woman. He rolled his eyes. This is the 5th time you've asked me. The woman beside Lin was none other than Lu Qianhuan, who was about to graduate and was facing an important decision in her life. But your answer is always different. Lu Qianhuan looked at Lin with a reproachful expression. Sunlight shone through the gaps between the leaves and shone on her fair, jade-like face. Her purple eyes shone brightly, and her coquettish expression was enough to charm countless male students. Lin sighed. I suggested you go to the executive department, but you said it was too dangerous and you didn't like fighting and killing. I suggested you go to the headquarters of the Celestial Court. You said your family had hundreds of millions of assets waiting for you to inherit, and you didn't want to abandon the sect. I asked you to go home, but you said the people at home were heartless. I suggested you become an itinerant cultivator and live a carefree life, but you said you would be lonely. What else could I say? Who told you to give such a perfunctory answer? Have you seriously considered it from my point of view? Lu Qianhuan stretched out her long, slender leg and kicked Lin's calf. She pouted and looked like she was about to cry. I thought of you as a friend, but you're still giving me such a perfunctory answer when I'm about to leave. Lin immediately cowered when he saw Lu Qianhuan's expression. He immediately offered words of consolation. All right, I'll analyze it for you in a very serious and sincere manner, all right? You said it, don't go back on your word. Lu Qianhuan's face instantly lit up with a beautiful smile. Lin was astonished upon seeing this. Could people change their attitudes so quickly? She looked like she was about to cry just a second ago, and now she was suddenly a sunny day. Lin and Lu Qianhuan walked side by side. He put himself in Lu Qianhuan's shoes and thought about Lu Qianhuan's question. The two of them interacted on the small path, and there was a hint of youthfulness and liveliness in their cozy interactions. This liveliness came from the fact that the woman would occasionally make small movements to tease the man beside her. For example, she would suddenly flick Lin's ear, or she would stealthily use her sword intent to cut off a strand of hair from Lin. Lin would sometimes choose to retaliate, but the woman would always use her nimble movement techniques to evade his attacks, drawing a series of bell-like giggles. The relaxed and joyful atmosphere was tinged with the faint sorrow of parting. Lin looked at the slightly mischievous Lu Qianhuan. He couldn't bear to part with her when he thought about the fact that this familiar friend of his was about to leave soon. He thought about it for a moment before speaking. Lu Qianhuan, then I'll ask you the first question. You have so many assets in your family, so how much do they weigh in your heart? Chapter 689. Lu Qianhuan tapped her chin with a long, slender finger as a thoughtful expression appeared on her face. After a long while, she said, It's impossible for me to treat money like dirt. Aside from mental fortitude, talent, and opportunities, resources are also very important in cultivation. With my status and aptitude, I would definitely be nurtured by the next sect leader if I returned to the sect, so I definitely wouldn't be lacking in resources. Lin nodded. Lu Qianhuan had the best aptitude in the Heavenly Sword sect of the Kingdom of the Nine States, and she was also the biological daughter of sect leader Lu Mingxian. The Heavenly Sword sect was one of the 4 great sects of the Kingdom of the Nine States and was renowned throughout the entire continent. Lu Qianhuan was a top-notch second-generation immortal, so returning to the sect seemed to be the best choice if she wanted to improve her cultivation base. But you don't want to go back just because there's no love in the sect? Lin was a little perplexed. That can't be right. How cold can the sect be? Cultivation is the most important thing. After all, you can do whatever you want once your cultivation base is high enough. A faint smile appeared on Lu Qianhuan's face. You don't understand. Those who have walked out of loneliness don't want to go back to that kind of environment. Of course, it would be best if I don't return to the sect, and the sect would do everything in their power to nurture me. Anlin's expression darkened. You wish. Lu Qianhuan raised her hands and poked her delicate cheeks with her index fingers in an adorable manner. I'm beautiful, so I naturally have to wish for more. Anlin was speechless. If you don't need large amounts of resources, the sect can give you some leeway. It's yours anyway, so it's yours. No one can take it away from you. Anlin thought for a moment before speaking. A resigned expression appeared on Lu Qianhuan's face. But that man said that I can reluctantly accept not returning to the sect, but I can't join the Celestial Court. You know that once you join the Celestial Court, you have to swear a Dao Heart oath of loyalty to the Celestial Court. It'll be very difficult for you to return to the sect after that. In fact, this was a question that troubled countless students. Should they belong to the Celestial Court or return to their own sects? This was a difficult decision to make. There were also people who ran between the Celestial Court and the sects, but these people were usually outsiders. The Celestial Court would never give real opportunities to these people. To obtain real benefits, one must be truly loyal to the Celestial Court and become a core member of the Celestial Court. If Lu Qianhuan couldn't become a core member of the Celestial Court, then what was the point of her remaining in the Celestial Court? She might as well roam the outside world. However, not everyone was the main character, and they could obtain countless fortuitous opportunities just by playing around. With the support of a sect's resources, it was always beneficial for growth. Lu Qianhuan, you're too arrogant. Ordinary sects definitely won't take you seriously, as even their patriarchs might not be able to defeat you. It seems like the only options left are the Celestial Court and the Heavenly Sword sect. Anlin's eyes suddenly lit up as he spoke. No. You're afraid of loneliness, so you want a sect that's arrogant and allows you to be with your friends. Then, we can create our own sect and have fun on our own. Create our own sect? Lu Qianhuan's purple eyes glowed with excitement. That's right. A group that belongs to our friends, a sect that is extremely free. You can go back to your own sect whenever you want. But in our sect, you'll have absolute freedom without any restrictions. Anlin became more and more excited as he spoke, and it was as if a grand vision was unfolding before his eyes. A hint of hesitation appeared on Lu Qianhuan's face. But can a sect that only entertains itself really be considered a sect? Setting aside arrogance, perhaps even how it's going to develop is a problem? That's not true. Anlin wagged a finger. Third-rate sects develop through spirit stones and other resources, second-rate sects develop through martial prowess, and first-rate sects develop through mystic realms and cultivation methods. Think about it, aside from some of the sect's exclusive cultivation methods, there's your Heavenly Sword sect cultivation method, Big Brother Cheng's Myriad Spirit sect cultivation method, Su Xiaolan's Vermilion Bird sect cultivation method, and Debai's Mythological Beast sect cultivation method. Just how alluring would all of these be to the cultivators of the Kingdom of the Nine States? Lu Qianhuan's eyes widened as she drew a sharp intake of breath. All of the inheritances of the four great sects of the Kingdom of the Nine States. Not only that, but my disciple Xiao Zhe's Primordial Dragon Tribe inheritance, Little Na's Fairy Tribe Healing and Spatial inheritance, and my servant Little Lang's Ancient Man Tribe inheritance are all top-notch inheritances. I'm sure they'll create a massive stir across the entire continent. Anlin spoke with a smile. Lu Qianhuan swallowed involuntarily as a scorching light appeared in her eyes. Her desire to stir up trouble was burning. Founding a sect. That sounds very exciting. I feel as if I can already see the rise of a top-notch sect. Anlin, from what you said earlier, you'll also be participating in the founding of a sect, right? Lu Qianhuan's purple eyes flickered with excitement as she turned toward the man beside her. Anlin nodded. Of course. Even though this is just a spur-of-the-moment idea, it might actually be feasible. He was also struggling with the issue of separating from his friends, and he was also trying to think of a way to bridge the gap between them. This world was very big, and if there weren't any communication hubs, then perhaps even good friends would soon become familiar strangers. For example, Su Qianyun, Xianyuan Qing, Tang Shimen, Miao Tian, Luo Ziping, Zhao Huayin, and Lu Debao. After graduation, it was very likely that they would have to part ways and go their separate ways. Then, would he be able to form a big family? It couldn't just be a place for them to chat. That wouldn't be very attractive. It should be a place for new people to flourish. Not only would they be able to interact happily there, but it would also be beneficial to their cultivation. It was quite clear that founding a sect that could benefit everyone was a very good choice. I think my beast pets, disciples, and servants will all join that sect. Enlin smiled. This was a very lowly statement, but anyone who knew Enlin would definitely be given a fright by this statement. Just Enlin's forces alone would be enough to elevate that sect to become a first-rate sect in the Kingdom of the 9 States. If that's the case, then you'll be the leader of the sect. Lu Qianhuan smiled daintily. Since we've decided to found a sect, the first step is to give it a name. Do you have any good ideas? Why don't we call it the Lan Lin sect? Enlin blurted out. Lu Qianhuan faltered slightly upon hearing this, and her expression darkened a second later. You don't even forget to show off when you're founding a sect? This kind of sect will be done for sooner or later. An awkward smile appeared on Enlin's face. Then what do you think is a good name? Lu Qianhuan pondered for a moment before suggesting, when we establish a sect, all of our members will be top-tier powerful beings, the elites of the elites. She continued, why don't we call our sect the League of Legends? Enlin. Chapter 690. League of Legends? Enlin's chest constricted, and he wanted nothing more than to leave right away. Are you serious, Lu Qianhuan? He asked with a dark expression. Lu Qianhuan giggled and nodded. Otherwise, the League of Valor is fine too. Then is the main business of our sect to open internet cafes, play games, and collect fees? Enlin asked expressionlessly. That's great. That's a great idea. We can then attract a wave of internet addicts and start a gaming frenzy in the cultivation world. Lu Qianhuan clapped her hands in approval as if she had discovered a new continent. Sorry to disturb you. Enlin turned to leave. Hey, don't go. A slender hand latched onto Enlin's arm. If you don't like the name, we can think about it again. Lu Qianhuan pouted and looked at Enlin with an aggrieved expression, as if she were a helpless little kitten. All right, let's think about it again. Enlin heaved a forlorn sigh. In reality, the name of a sect could also affect the fortune of that sect. It either had to display the unique characteristics of the sect, or it had to have a domineering aura. Celestial Court, 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect, Vermilion Bird Sect, Heavenly Sword Sect, Mythological Beast Sect. All of these sects had bad *SS names. If they had tacky names, even the heavens wouldn't like them, let alone bless them. Of course, the Heaven-Crushing sect was an exception. The two of them began another round of discussion. Names were actually quite difficult to come up with. There were so many sects now, and many names had already been used. You couldn't just register a sect and steal their name, right? That would be immoral. Those who were weak would be accused of bullying the weak. Those who were strong would inevitably have to fight each other. Suddenly having a sect with the same name was clearly a provocation. There could only be one sect with such a name on this continent. Sigh, it looks like most of the names for the Intent Realms have already been chosen. How about we come up with some weird names? Lu Qianhuan suggested with a bitter expression. A thoughtful expression appeared on Enlin's face, and his eyes suddenly lit up. How about we call it the 4-9 Immortal Sect? Lu Qianhuan paused momentarily before chuckling. You're referring to the 50 Heavenly Tao and 49 Heavenly Evolution? That's right. Enlin said, no one would name a sect with numbers like this, right? It's the only one in the entire continent, and it's so King profound. Lu Qianhuan snapped her fingers. Alright, we'll call it the 4-9 Immortal Sect then. Thus, the 4-9 Immortal Sect was born from their casual conversation. After that, they discussed some plans for the future of the sect. They chatted and laughed as they walked along the path, and before they knew it, they had reached the end of the path. Lu Qianhuan had also made her final decision. Pavilion Master of the Sword Pavilion, don't forget to come to my place for dinner tonight. We'll continue our discussion then. Anlin said loudly to the beautiful figure that was flying on a sword. All right, sect leader. Don't forget to recruit a few good teammates into the sect. Lu Qianhuan's crisp and carefree voice sounded from the sky. She had to go to the university to complete the final paperwork. She would not stay in the Celestial Court upon her graduation. Instead, she would return to the 4-9 Immortal Sect. Within the Celestial Court, the United University of Cultivation Student Office, all of the teachers were dumbstruck upon seeing the information on Lu Qianhuan's form. What the hell was the 4-9 Immortal Sect? Ahem, student Lu Qianhuan, your cultivation aptitude is among the best in the entire kingdom of the 9 states. Only by joining the Celestial Court will you be able to progress in your cultivation. Going to another sect would be a complete waste of your exceptional aptitude. A gentle-looking teacher urged in a meaningful and heartfelt voice. Another female teacher also chimed in with a sincere expression. Even if you don't come to the Celestial Court, the Heavenly Sword Sect is still a very good place for you to go. Why do you have to establish a new sect? Isn't that just ridiculous? Alright, a prodigy like me will shine no matter where I go. Goodbye, dear teachers, I'll miss you all. Lu Qianhuan waved at them with a radiant and enchanting smile on her face as she stepped out of the door. She was going to be the pioneer of the 4-9 Immortal Sect and expand its territory. Perhaps it would be a little boring and lonely in the beginning, but she believed that her friends would definitely come to reunite with her in the sect. Anlin's dorm room was packed with people this time. All of them were friends who had come to bid farewell to Lu Qianhuan. Anlin's announcement of his intention to establish a new sect instantly created a stir in the dorm room, which was then followed by even more heated discussions. Su Xiaolan naturally supported Anlin unconditionally, and she announced that she wanted to become the Pavilion Lord of the Flame Pavilion. However, to Anlin's surprise, everyone else was also supporting the establishment of this sect with all their might. Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiu, the two diehard fans, were yelling that they wanted to join Lu Qianhuan's Sword Pavilion. Tang Shimin was preparing to become an elder, and he was not responsible for teaching anyone. Su Qianyun was planning to establish the Moon Pavilion, and she asked if she could establish a Moon Palace pill refinement branch here so that she could recruit many beautiful women to refine pills with her. Anlin was naturally in full support of this idea. Xian Yuancheng pondered for a moment and decided that he could become the Pavilion Lord of the Spirit Pavilion, but he would need a Vice Pavilion Lord to assist him. After all, he would most likely have to juggle both the 10,000 Spirits Immortal Sect and the 4-9 Immortal Sect after graduation. Miao Tian, Luo Zipping, and the others also announced that they wanted to join the new sect, but they hadn't decided what they would be doing yet. Tears welled up in Lu Qianhuan's eyes as she looked at the increasingly enthusiastic discussions going on. She had already grown accustomed to the warmth of being together with everyone, and she was no longer lonely. However, the separation after graduation struck fear into her heart again. She was afraid that she would lose everything she had in the school. But now she discovered that as long as she worked hard to maintain her friendship with her true friends, then this warmth could last forever. Sword Immortal Lu, I'll be with you from now on. A frail woman in a green dress with a hint of heroic spirit draped her arm around Lu Qianhuan's shoulder with a wide grin. Lu Qianhuan turned to look at this close friend of hers. Her name was Xian Zhu, and she had exceptional aptitude. However, her previous sect was quite mediocre. Logically speaking, the Celestial Court was her best choice. However, She began to hesitate after hearing that her idol, Unlin, was going to establish a new sect, and that her good friend was going to become a pavilion lord there. At this moment, Xin Zhu finally made an important decision. She was going to the 4-9 sect. Think about it again. A new sect doesn't have many benefits. Lu Qianhuan spoke with a serious expression. I've decided. If I follow you guys and become a founding elder of the sect, then wouldn't I be rich when the sect really rises to prominence in the future? This is called a long-term investment. Xin Zhu spoke with a serious expression. Lu Qianhuan laughed heartily upon hearing this before flicking her forehead. All right, Zhu, you're mine from now on. After that, another heated discussion ensued. In the end, Unlin decided on the structure of the new sect. He stood on a chair with a flag in his hand. The words 4 formed by a golden phoenix and 9 formed by a true dragon appeared on the black flag. I hereby announce that the 4-9 sect, which represents the hope of the entire human race, has been established today. Following this announcement, a wave of cheers erupted from within the dormitory, as well as the cries of phoenixes and the cries of dragons. No one knew what this sect entailed. All they knew was that sometimes they just had to follow their heart's instincts. As for what happened after that, that could wait. Chapter 691. The structure and core members of the 4-9 sect had already been established. Unlin was the sect leader, and there were 9 pavilions under the sect, which were Su Xiaolan's Flame Pavilion, Lu Qianhuan's Sword Pavilion, Xianyuan Cheng's Spirit Pavilion, Su Qianyun's Moon Pavilion, Xiao Zhe's Dragon Pavilion, Debai's Beast Pavilion, Little Lang's Man Pavilion, Tina's Realm Pavilion, and Bryce's Blood Pavilion. Aside from that, Tang Shimen, Xiao Hong, Xiao Chou, and Little Tian were the sect elders, and their ranks were equivalent to the pavilion lords. Each pavilion branch had a small elder, such as Yao Mingxi, Yao Xiu, and Xin Zhu, who were the small elders of the Sword Pavilion. Zhao Huayin was the small elder of the Beast Pavilion, Hu Guan and Lu Debao were the small elders of the Dragon Pavilion, and there was no one else in the other pavilions. In any case, they were all officials now, and all that was left was to be recruited. We'll select a location after the school holidays, Unlin said. Everyone returned home after a joyous day, and their hearts were still filled with hope for their new sect. Unlin was no exception. Never would he have thought that his unrealistic idea would receive the support of so many friends and become a reality. Unlin actually wanted to spread the news of his new sect to the entire university. With his prestige and influence, perhaps he could even attract a wave of die-hard fans to join the sect. However, he quickly dismissed this idea. Firstly, he didn't want to hold up the students' futures, and secondly, he didn't want to be beaten to death by the leaders of the Celestial Court. F***ck. He had painstakingly nurtured them, and you want to poach them just like that? Do you want to die? It was already late at night and everyone had left. However, Su Xiaolan remained in her dorm room. This time, she was going to carry out a grand plan, and that was to pull all living beings aside from Unlin into her divine mirror world. That's right, Unlin and Su Xiaolan had entered the divine mirror world together. In the past, she was able to easily drag Unlin into the divine mirror world, as the two of them already had a contractual connection, so it was a lot easier. However, she didn't have any contractual connection with Su Xiaolan, so the difficulty was clearly raised to a whole new level. Are you ready? If you're ready, I'll start. Tina giggled. Unlin and Su Xiaolan nodded solemnly and held hands unconsciously. Tina flew between the two of them, and a white light enshrouded both of them. An extremely powerful spatial force swept over. Whoosh! Unlin was struck by a rush of dizziness before he appeared in the air above Qi Lu City. He turned to his side to find that Tina was panting heavily with a pale face. The other woman had already disappeared. Unlin, with the power of my main body on the Tai Chu continent, it's still too difficult for me to travel between two realms at the same time. Tina turned to Enlin with an apologetic expression, as if she were begging for his forgiveness. Enlin heaved a forlorn sigh. It's all right. You can try again when you become more powerful in the future. Let's go and see how this world is developing. Within a small dorm room, a woman in a jade dress looked around at the empty dorm room with confusion in her eyes. So it's a failure? She murmured to herself. For some reason, she was feeling a little dejected. Within the divine mirror world, the first thing Enlin and Tina had to do was observe the development of the spirit-engulfing beast. It had to be said that the spirit-engulfing beasts that had evolved once again had brought the entire continent a nightmarish experience. Ghostly movement techniques, insidious ambushes, bizarre attack techniques, a terrifying hobby of devouring souls, and a body that couldn't be injured by non-soul attacks. All of these made them the epitome of the devil. Most importantly, these spirit-engulfing beasts weren't retarded anymore. That was the most terrifying part. How terrifying were spirit-engulfing beasts that weren't retarded? A soul formation stage powerful being from the Snake Spirit clan, one of the most powerful beings in this world, was killed by 9 spirit-engulfing beasts during a hunt. This was very frightening. The supreme cultivators of the 9 great clans, those godlike peerless cultivators, could actually die. This event had completely changed the worldview of the 9 tribes. After Adam and Eve progressed to the soul formation stage, the human race had truly stepped onto the world stage and was beginning to stir up a storm. In terms of overall power, the human race was already comparable to the 9 tribes. In terms of individual power, the human race was actually still lagging behind the 9 tribes. However, the overall power of the human race was extremely terrifying. As gunpowder production continued to improve, all types of powerful firearms began to appear. Was a low-rank Dao body stage cultivator more powerful, or was the human race more powerful? The answer was obvious. All types of cannons and cannons were extremely effective against huge beasts that were afraid of sound and light. As a result, the human race's territory continued to expand. Tall city walls were erected, and all types of skyscrapers were erected. Electric lights, telephones, all types of steam-powered and fuel-powered inventions appeared. The human race's lifestyle underwent an unimaginable transformation. The single dog who only loved science, the 9th son of Adam and Eve, Seth, became the most dazzling being in the human race aside from the patriarchs. The reason for this was none other than the fact that the scientific team he led had transformed the human world. Humans also began to understand the power of science and technology. Who knew that it could be this powerful? The craze of researching science and technology rose among the human race. Enlin knew that the human race had entered a period of technological explosion. The human race has Chi Lu City as their main city and 17 satellite cities. Their total population has reached 7 million. Their technological level is at the pinnacle of the first-level civilization, but they're still at the thermal energy stage. Their particle energy civilization has only just begun, and they're still at the stage of discovering electricity. In the cultivation civilization, there are a total of 5 soul formation stage cultivators, close to 100 spirit nurturing stage cultivators, and over 1 million Dao body stage cultivators. Enlin evaluated slowly as he marveled at the terrifying rate of development in his heart. Under normal circumstances, Tina's time acceleration could only be maintained at around 500 times the normal speed, and it was very easy for her to tire out. Giant Enlin, I suddenly thought of something. How about we combine all of the most powerful beings in this world into the 4-9 sect? Tina suddenly suggested. Enlin's expression faltered slightly upon hearing this suggestion before becoming extremely excited. That's a great idea. That way, our sect would have a secret power that would be comprised of all of the most powerful beings in this world. Only after thinking about it did he realize just how terrifying this power was. How many years had it taken for Tina to create so many soul formation stage powerful beings in this world? Countless years had indeed elapsed through time acceleration. However, in the outside world, only less than half a year had passed. In other words, Tina could take advantage of the time difference between the two worlds to nurture a large army of powerful beings. Now, let's see if we can teleport all of the living beings in this world out of here. Tina waved her delicate fists as she spoke with an excited expression.